It sounded like a question, but it was more of a statement. Of course, of course. Normally, how could Chun Tianxiong, the head of the Chun family and leader of the Chun base, be so easy to talk to? But right now, he was agreeing repeatedly. Chun Tianxiong even reminded Lin Shi, but these bugs are poisonous. They can't be eaten. Lin Shi nodded to show he understood. Chun Tianxiong was about to thank him when he suddenly saw a snow-white, wolf-like giant beast charging toward them. Chun Tianxiong was startled and shouted, "Watch out! It's a high-level prime beast." He drew his saber, flames erupting along the blade, and slashed at the charging wolf. Unexpectedly, the wolf was incredibly agile. It easily dodged Chun Tianxiong's attack and circled behind him. The other Qin family members were terrified, only catching a glimpse of a white blur. Alarm bells rang in Chun Tianxiong's head. Thinking, "Oh no," he turned around to block it, only to see the wolf that had put him on high alert standing obediently next to Lin Shi. It was even rubbing its head against Lin Shi like a well-behaved dog that had been raised for years. Chun Tianxiong's saber dropped into the snow. The other Qin family members almost cried out of pity for their patriarch. So that's how it was. That giant wolf was, of course, Demon King. Demon King was so fast that it wasn't until it stopped next to Lin Shi that everyone got a clear look at it. Its fur was snow-white and glossy, its body lithe and graceful, and its heterochromatic eyes looked incredibly majestic. What a beautiful prime beast! A Chun family member calmed down and muttered in admiration. "Is this your prime beast, Brother Lin?" Chun Tianxiong asked in astonishment. For some reason, Chun Tianxiong felt that this obedient prime beast in front of Lin Shi was even stronger than himself. He was a cultivator with 100 years of experience, a Tier 6 expert. If that was true, how strong must Lin Shi be to tame such a prime beast? Even though Chun Tianxiong had witnessed Lin Shi slaughtering the bug swarm with his own eyes, he just assumed it was some special ability Lin Shi had acquired after reaching Tier 6. More importantly, he couldn't believe that this young man, who was even younger than his own grandson, was stronger than him. Didn't that mean all his years of bitter cultivation were completely in vain? Chun Tianxiong was unwilling to accept it. Just as the Chun family members were in shock, Chun Lujia, who was being protected by Chun Sheng in the middle of the group, suddenly twitched his eyelids. He had been unconscious for several days. The initial poison wouldn't have been fatal for a Tier 5 powerhouse like him, but if he hadn't been treated in time, he would have died long ago. Gradually, the toxins were slowly neutralized by his body and the prime force within him. Hearing people talking, Chun Lujia opened his eyes and saw Lin Shi calmly chatting with Chun Tianxiong not far away. After being bitten by the snake, he had been drifting between reality and dreams, thinking he was still asleep. Chun Lujia muttered softly, "Looks like I'm still dreaming. How else could I be seeing Senior Lin Shi?" With that, he closed his eyes again. Hearing Chun Lujia's muttering, Chun Sheng said joyfully, "Sixth Master, you're awake." Discovering that Chun Lujia had regained consciousness, the Chun family members were overjoyed. Only then did Chun Lujia realize he wasn't dreaming. He looked at Lin Shi and asked in surprise, "Senior Lin, why are you here? You guys know each other?" Chun Tianxiong was even more astonished. Seeing such a young man like Lin Shi, he felt like everything was an illusion, completely beyond his imagination. Old Six stayed at home all day, yet he actually knew a powerhouse like this? Could it be that Old Sixth had been hiding his true capabilities all these years? Did he actually have huge ambitions and had long wanted to fight for the position of patriarch? Finally, after Chun Lujia explained, Chun Tianxiong learned that Lin Shi had been waiting at their base for the past few days. It turned out that Lin Shi was representing the Xia country government to cooperate with the Qin family. At the same time, he had also wiped out all the prime beasts in the Amazon rainforest. "Brother Lin, thank goodness you were here. I am truly grateful." A hero emerging from the youth, it's absolutely true. I don't even know how to thank you. Seeing that the white armored bugs that had besieged them for 2 months were gone, Chun Tianxiong thanked Lin Shi repeatedly. Since they were about to leave, and thinking about how this person had just saved him, Chun Tianxiong's face flushed with embarrassment. The Chun family members behind him all showed expressions of gratitude. "Patriarch Chun, there's no need to be so polite. I hunted the prime beasts for my own sake as well," Lin Shi said honestly. The corpses of the prime beasts helped him better understand how to improve his prime force. At the same time, they also helped his prime beast legion advance by providing them with food. Besides, coming here this time, Linshur also wanted to search for mutated plants. Finding mutated plants was his main goal, but Linshur absolutely wouldn't tell Chun Tianxiong about this. Hearing Linshur say this, Chun Tianxiong and the Chun family members respected him immensely. It was obvious that he had saved many of their lives, saving the entire Chun base. Yet he claimed it was for his own sake, even worrying about their pride. He even wanted to continue venturing deep into this dangerous forest of death for the future of humanity. What a noble character. Everyone felt deeply ashamed. Once I return to the base, I will immediately send someone to bring some of the Chun family's specially made pills. Chun Tianxiong looked at Linshur with eyes full of respect. Chun Wu patted his chest and said, "Patriarch, let me rest for 2 days, and I'll bring a few people back here. Even if we can't go deep, we can at least support Senior from the outskirts." Chun Tianxiong nodded repeatedly. As the patriarch, he couldn't leave the base for long. Not being able to personally hunt prime beasts alongside Linshur already made him feel guilty. Now that his clansmen had such good intentions, he was naturally pleased. Linshur thought to himself, "No need. Really no need. Don't come. I'll kill them faster on my own." But he couldn't say that in front of everyone. Linshur saw that the Chun family members meant well, so he couldn't make them lose face. If others treated him with a bit of courtesy, he would return the favor. On the contrary, if someone disrespected him even a little, he would pay them back tenfold. After hearing the Chun family's words of gratitude, Linshur watched Chun Tianxiong lead his people away. In the White Forest, only Linshur and Demon King remained. He stored the insect corpses on the ground into his spatial storage. Suddenly, a familiar wolf howl echoed from the center of the White Forest. Linshur was slightly startled and patted Demon King's shoulder. "Let's go." When he divided the primeval beast legion for their operation, Linshur had instructed the leaders to send a signal if they encountered an overwhelmingly strong enemy. Now, it seemed Xiaobai was in trouble. Xiaobai was already a Tier 6 primeval beast and the leader of the wolf pack, holding the strongest position in the legion. If even Xiaobai was struggling, the enemy must be truly formidable. As soon as he finished speaking, Demon King dashed off like the wind. Linshur also jumped onto the giant kite, his spiritual power sweeping towards Xiaobai's direction. Even with Linshur's usual composure, his pupils couldn't help but shrink. A short distance ahead, Xiaobai was constantly growling to threaten a massive monster, but it didn't dare to get close. Protecting the wolf pack, it kept retreating, maintaining a safe distance from the beast. It was called a massive monster because it was over 10 meters long, its entire body covered in a layer of bone-like ice armor. Its head was even larger than the Tier 6 Xiaobai. Its eyes, as big as chopping boards, were cold, bloodthirsty, and devoid of any warmth. A Tier 7 primeval beast. Linshur spoke in a low voice. Just as they set foot in the Amazon basin, they encountered their first strong enemy, a Tier 7 mutated giant crocodile. Linshur quickly flew towards Xiaobai. The giant crocodile seemed to sense the presence of Linshur or Demon King, and suddenly crawled upstream, away from Xiaobai. The river was frozen, but as the giant crocodile's claws dug in, the sound of cracking and shattering ice echoed. The ice layer, several meters thick, was crushed by its weight and power. The giant crocodile plunged into the deep river, disappearing beneath the ice. When Linshur and Demon King caught up, they only saw the splashing water left by its dive. Woof! Demon King growled provocatively at the large crack in the ice, where the rushing water revealed a pair of terrifying eyes. Instantly, a few cold flashes of light appeared. Linshur controlled the origin energy fragments to shoot toward the crocodile's eyes. The crocodile closed its eyes, and the scales on its eyelids clashed with the fragments, emitting the sound of colliding metal. Only a few white marks appeared on its eyelids. The crocodile stared at Linshur and Demon King, then slowly sank into the water. Woof woof! Demon King barked fiercely at the icy hole. "It's gone. No need to chase," Linshur said. Underwater was the crocodile's territory, not his or Demon King's. Moreover, where there was one mutated crocodile, there could be many others. Although the river was too dangerous, Lin Shi used his spiritual power to skim below. Sure enough, beneath the ice, in the murky water, dozens of mutated crocodiles of various sizes were lurking, but none were as massive as the previous one. Let's go. As long as it doesn't come up, just ignore it, Lin Shi said. Lin Shi, Demon King, and the wolf pack left. The original giant crocodile that had been hiding opened its icy eyes again, emerging from beneath the ice. At this moment, the strange small white trees along the riverbank rustled their branches and leaves. The giant crocodile shifted its eyes, following the movement. Lin Shi instructed Xiao Bai to continue moving freely, only telling it and the wolf pack to temporarily stay away from the riverbank, while he ventured deeper into the white forest. Beside him, the stark white tree trunks swayed in the wind. From afar, thick patches of snow fell endlessly. Everything, from the trunks to the leaves, was covered in white, blending almost seamlessly with the snowy landscape from a distance. As soon as he entered the forest, Lin Shi chopped down one of these strange trees. Compared to the trees commonly seen before the apocalypse, this type had much thicker bark, but the inside was hollow. There were no clear tree rings like normal trees. The tree didn't contain much origin energy. Lin Shi used the cornucopia to absorb one, only gaining a few hundred points. Chopping the tree was quite difficult. If he weren't a Tier 7 evolver, it would have been hard to fell it. The tree had no offensive capabilities or toxicity. It definitely wasn't some kind of divine tree. A single tree wasn't strong or threatening, but Lin Shi still paid close attention, because the entire dense forest was made up of this type of tree. The forest was thick, with no end in sight, making the vast expanse feel like a single, unified entity. The strange thing was, the deeper he went into the white forest, the quieter it became. Before long, Lin Shi realized that his spiritual power scan of the area didn't detect a single primeval beast. Something's wrong. Lin Shi stopped. Although the Amazon rainforest covered millions of square kilometers, his current spiritual power range was enough to cover an entire city, meaning tens of thousands of square kilometers. How could he not sense any primeval beasts? Demon King, following Lin Shi, stopped and suddenly turned its head toward a certain direction. Lin Shi looked in that direction and realized it was the spot where he had previously killed hundreds of thousands of white armored bugs. Lin Shi frowned. An origin energy fragment shot out from beside him, and with a swoosh of wind, a white armored bug dozens of meters away was sliced in half. Lin Shi went over to inspect the bug's corpse. This bug was no different from the hundreds of thousands of white armored bugs he had killed before. Why hadn't he sensed its presence? Lin Shi realized something was wrong. An indescribable sense of danger washed over him. The rustling sound from the white trees overhead echoed again. Lin Shi looked up, but saw nothing. Demon King, return to the spatial storage and await orders. I'm going to find Xiao Bai. Demon King also sensed something and nodded at Lin Shi, using its eyes to signal him to be careful. Lin Shi stored the bug's corpse and Demon King into his spatial storage, then used the giant kite wheel to fly up, heading deeper into the white forest. In the white forest, Xiao Bai and the wolf pack were chasing 3 Tier 5 jaguars. The jaguars were incredibly agile, fleeing at breakneck speed. Xiao Bai condensed wind blades, slashing them into the path of the Tier 5 jaguars. Sensing the danger, the Tier 5 jaguars were forced to stop. This was a fatal pause. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Bai caught up, lunging forward. Its sharp wolf claws pierced right through a jaguar's head. The leopard trembled and instantly stopped breathing. With bloody claws, Xiao Bai threw the leopard's corpse down and continued chasing its prey. From the wolf pack behind, a Tier 5 wolf immediately dashed out, quickly and skillfully picking up the jaguar's corpse in its jaws. It relentlessly followed from behind. Many other giant wolves in the pack also picked up the prey from this hunt. Xiao Bai used the same method to kill the second Tier 5 leopard. But right in the middle of the pursuit, it suddenly stopped. The wolf pack behind also stopped. Xiao Bai cautiously observed its surroundings. Whether it was because they had gone too deep or sensed danger, it turned its head and howled at the pack, then headed back the way they came. The wolves immediately turned around and followed. This pack was highly disciplined, the most elite among all the primeval beasts in Lin Shi's legion. But Xiao Bai and the wolf pack hadn't run far. On the path they had just taken, countless tiny white crustaceans swarmed out from everywhere. They blocked the retreat of Xiaobai and the pack. Xiaobai lowered its body, letting out a low growl at the white crustaceans. Lin Shi stepped on the giant kite wheel, hovering in the air. He had clearly just parted ways with Xiaobai and the wolf pack not long ago, yet in the blink of an eye, his spiritual power could no longer sense their presence. If it wasn't because Xiaobai and the pack had run too fast and too far, then there was something wrong with this forest. This forest could affect his spiritual power. Lin Shi narrowed his eyes, carefully observing the white trees in the dense forest below. Just as he was wondering if he should play lumberjack today, a very faint sound reached his ears. Lin Shi paused, straining his ears to listen. Standing in midair, he clearly didn't feel any wind, yet the dense forest continued to emit a soft rustling sound. This was vibrations. He stared intently at a white tree below and noticed it was trembling very slightly. Those vibrations caused the leaves and the snow on them to make a rustling noise. Lin Shi dropped straight down from the sky, holding the giant kite wheel in his hand, and chopped at the tree. The tree was hollow. There was only a strange fluctuation emitting from the roots, like some kind of signal. Lin Shi quickly realized something. He chopped the tree with force, wanting to dig up this white stump. When he dug it up, he found that even the root system was hollow. Moreover, these hollow roots were all growing slanted in one direction. He wanted to dig up the entire root system, but ended up digging into another white tree stump. Soon after, Lin Shi quickly discovered that it seemed all these tree stumps were hollow and all slanted in the same direction. Furthermore, this type of tree could interfere with Lin Shi's spiritual power scanning. At first, he didn't even notice anything unusual. This discovery made him feel an extreme sense of danger. Right at this moment, Lin Shi heard Xiaobai's wolf howl. The sound was powerful and urgent, signaling an approaching, unstoppable danger. Lin Shi hurriedly controlled the giant kite wheel to fly toward the source of the howl. Happy New Year to all the bosses. Wishing you a happy 2024. Not long after, Lin Shi found Xiaobai and the wolf pack trapped, and his expression instantly turned grave. At this moment, on the ground, Xiaobai and the wolf pack were being forced to retreat continuously deeper into the dense forest. Chasing them were hundreds of thousands of the white crustaceans that Lin Shi had previously killed. Unexpectedly, after Lin Shi had wiped out a massive number of them, there were still up to 1 million left. Layers upon layers of insects, as if following orders, marched neatly toward the wolf pack. If someone with trypophobia saw this scene, they would probably die on the spot. Wherever the white crustaceans crawled past, they left behind several giant wolf skeletons. The pale pink skeletons were gnawed completely clean, with even the bones covered in tiny bite marks. Many wolves in the pack had leg injuries, some wounds so deep that the bone was visible. Clearly, Xiaobai had fought these insects before. If there were only 1, 2, or a few of these white crustaceans, they wouldn't pose a threat to Xiaobai and the pack. But the problem was there were hundreds of thousands to over 1 million of them. 10 would die, and 100 more would rush in. A single white crustacean couldn't bite through the skin of a tier 5 or higher primeval beast. But what if 10 or 200 bit the same spot? If they weren't quickly shaken off, the beast would soon be bitten all over. Xiaobai was very smart. Knowing it couldn't fight them head-on, it could only howl for backup while retreating to buy time. Except for the path behind them, all other directions were surrounded by white crustaceans, and they couldn't fly. Catching Lin Shi's scent, Xiaobai was both overjoyed and ashamed. Thinking about having to call Lin Shi for help twice in one day, it felt very guilty for relying on his help. What the? You did great. Go back. Lin Shi landed in front of Xiaobai and stored the entire wolf pack into his spatial dimension. Seeing Lin Shi appear, the swarm of white crustaceans temporarily halted their attack. Lin Shi controlled the primeval weapon fragments behind his back to fly out. The giant meat grinder appeared once again. But that wasn't all. From his spatial dimension, several thousand more primeval weapon fragments flew out. A golden light seemed to flash in Lin Shi's eyes. The fragments covered the sky, radiating a terrifyingly brilliant light under the sun, spinning like blades and relentlessly tearing through the insect swarm. In just a few breaths, at least over 100,000 white crustacean corpses lay dead on the spot. At this moment, A small white tree within the swarm trembled. The white crustaceans fell into chaos, then quickly scattered. Lin Shi directly controlled the primeval weapon fragments to crush that small white tree. Just as he guessed, this tree indeed acted as a signal transmitter. Earlier, because he hadn't noticed this tiny vibration, he had mistaken it for the sound of the wind. This swarm of white crustaceans was being controlled by some invisible commander, aiming to herd the primeval beasts into one place. And the direction they were driving them toward was the deep forest. The swarm retreated very quickly, but chasing them down one by one was too troublesome. After leaving behind tens of thousands of white crustacean corpses, Lin Shi finally recalled the insect bodies and his primeval weapon fragments. After quickly cleaning up the battlefield, Lin Shi flew up again. Following a brief search, he successively found Bao Jun's Panda Legion and the Jaguar Squad. Both teams were being herded by the white insect swarm. Bao Jun's Panda Legion was faring a bit better. Under the interference of Hua Hua's spiritual power, those insects would just spin in place as soon as they got close, as if their signals were jammed. When Lin Shi arrived, he saw the tyrant pandas swatting the spinning insects with their paws, as if playing some weird game. Bao Jun was chasing the white insect swarm, charging like a maniac, completely oblivious to everything else. On the other side, the jaguars were in a much more pathetic state, being chased and scattered all over the place. Seeing this scene, the long-armed ape's face scrunched up so much it was deformed. He didn't expect that the usually goofy creature would be so terrified of bugs. Luckily, Lin Shi arrived in time. Otherwise, who knows how deep into the forest they would have been herded. It was truly a situation of crying out to the heavens and earth with no response. Storing the jaguars into his spatial dimension, Lin Shi went to look for the long-armed ape, but couldn't find any trace of it or any primeval beasts of its kind. The long-armed ape must have gone deep into the forest. With the size of the long-armed ape and its subordinates, it was impossible not to spot them. Therefore, Lin Shi stopped searching blindly in the forest and flew straight toward the center, where the white insect swarm was driving the primeval beasts. Along the way, Lin Shi constantly felt a vague sense of being watched. The deeper he went into the forest, the clearer that feeling of being probed became, giving him goosebumps. When Lin Shi noticed that the area ahead suddenly opened up, completely devoid of trees, his heart couldn't help but turn cold. In the center of the white forest was a clearing over 1,000 meters wide. In the middle of the clearing was a deep pit several hundred meters in diameter. At this moment, countless white insects surrounded the pit, seemingly both terrified and protecting something. Lin Shi quickly flew over the deep pit. Sure enough, he saw the long-armed ape and the other beasts. The scene before him made him take a deep breath. Inside the dark pit, countless white bones and dried beast corpses covered the bottom of the several hundred-meter deep hole. Just how many primeval beasts had died here? What was even more horrifying was that around and beneath those white bones, countless white vines resembling veins covered the entire pit, writhing as if alive. Each vine was as thick as an adult's torso. From those vines, countless tiny tentacles sprouted, squirming grotesquely inside the deep pit, looking like prehistoric earthworms magnified tens of thousands of times. It was incredibly terrifying and disgusting. Even though Lin Shi had been through so much, he was still horrified by the sight before him. What the hell is this? Lin Shi spotted the long-armed ape standing on a large rock, digging along with the other primeval beasts. They were trying to dig an escape route to hide. The vines writhed. The rock beneath the long-armed ape's feet was tottering. Looking at the dozens of freshly dead beast corpses, it knew that falling down would not end well. Seeing Lin Shi, the long-armed ape was so moved that tears welled up in its eyes. It shrieked. If it could speak, it probably would have jumped up and yelled, "Master, save me. There's a monster trying to eat me." But Lin Shi didn't make a move. Normally, with just a thought, he could store the long-armed ape and the other beasts into his spatial dimension. But right now, his spiritual power felt suppressed by something, unable to budge. Lin Shi was filled with doubt. Just then, a tier-4 monkey dodging the vines, perhaps too overjoyed at seeing Lin Shi, slipped and fell into the pit. Lin Shi watched as the tier-4 monkey plummeted to the bottom, and then the tiny tentacles on the vines effortlessly pierced through its fur. In mere moments, it was sucked dry into a husk. The long-armed ape also saw this, and wailed even more miserably. Above were countless white insects, and below were grotesque vines devouring living flesh. If its master hadn't arrived, it would surely be dead. The long-armed ape was one of the earliest primeval beasts to follow Lin Shi and had achieved outstanding merits many times. Lin Shi definitely wanted to save them. This bizarre entity, let's call it a mutant vine plant, could suppress his spiritual power. It was at least tier 7, maybe even tier 8. Lin Shi wasn't sure what kind of variables he would face if he went down there. He thought for a moment, took out a long, thick iron chain from his spatial dimension, and dropped it down from the sky to pull them up one by one. Even though his spiritual power was affected, preventing him from controlling his spatial dimension from a distance, he could still use it as long as he physically touched the object. This way, he didn't have to go down himself and risk the danger. The chain was lowered right in front of the long-armed ape. The ape's eyes lit up. It let out a roar and immediately reached out to grab the iron chain. But an accident happened right at this moment. Normally, the other primeval beasts would definitely obey orders and stand still, waiting for Lin Shi to store them into his spatial dimension one by one. But today, a series of dangers had occurred, from the white crustaceans to the bizarre vines, terrifying many of the monkeys. As soon as the iron chain fell in front of the long-armed ape and was grabbed by it, many monkeys on the cave walls also lunged to grab the chain. "Don't grab it," Lin Shi shouted, but it was too late. The iron chain in Lin Shi's hand was just a thick crane chain. It could only bear the weight of 1 or 2 primeval beasts at most. Many primeval beasts hanging on it at the same time would cause the chain to snap in an instant. Hearing Lin Shi's shout, the long-armed ape pulled its hand back. But the other monkeys rushed forward to snatch the iron chain. At the same time, some monkeys who initially intended to obey orders saw their kin grabbing the chain and also threw themselves down to lunge for it. It's often said that monkeys are the creatures most similar to humans. They are smart, agile, and cunning. Especially those that have evolved to higher tiers, they become even more human-like. Driven by survival instincts, these monkeys revealed their blindness and selfishness. But that was also what got them killed. Didn't these smart apes know the iron chain couldn't bear the weight of so many origin beasts? No, they knew. They just thought Lin Shi had spent so much time and origin beast corpses raising them, so he definitely wouldn't abandon them easily. With Lin Shi's reflexes, he could have easily stored the iron chain and the apes clinging to it into his storage space right before it snapped. Even though many apes suspended in midair wouldn't have caught the chain in time and would still fall, he could have at least saved some of them. But sometimes, being too smart leads to fatal mistakes. Lin Shi didn't do that. With a cold expression, the moment the iron chain was pulled taut, he let go. He coldly watched the iron chain and those traitorous apes scream in terror as they plummeted into the deep pit. They were pierced through their scales by the vine's tentacles, losing their lives. I know you're smarter than the other origin beasts in the team. I hope you understand that I can raise you, and I can also abandon you. There is only one consequence for disobedience. That is death. Lin Shi's cold voice echoed clearly in the cave. He knew these apes could understand him. The other apes looked at Lin Shi in terror. The long-armed ape watched its subordinates turn into dried corpses at the bottom of the pit in the blink of an eye, unable to stop trembling. It continuously beat its chest and wailed to show its loyalty. Lin Shi took out another iron chain. This time, not a single ape dared to get in the way. Lin Shi stored them into his space one by one, without stopping. Until the last ape was saved, Lin Shi looked down at the bottom of the pit, where dozens of ape corpses lay scattered. His eyes held no pity. Humans and origin beasts were inherently opposed. Intelligent creatures could never peacefully coexist with an alien race. Today it was these apes. Tomorrow it could be other origin beasts. But as long as they disobeyed or harbored ulterior motives, Lin Shi wouldn't hesitate to eradicate them. With nothing left at the mouth of the pit, the vines at the bottom seemed to sense it and writhed even more violently. The white armored bugs surrounding the pit screeched in frustration. Fortunately, they didn't act as Lin Shi had predicted, and the vines didn't extend their tentacles up from the bottom. Lin Shi was now certain that this bizarre vine could control or influence these white armored bugs. They made these white armored bugs drive origin beasts into the pit for the vine to feed on. The vine absorbed the flesh and blood of the origin beasts, leaving the skin and bones for the white armored bugs to eat. If it weren't for Lin Shi, anyone else below Tier 7 would have been trapped, exhausted, and driven here to be sucked dry by the vine. Too bad the white armored bugs couldn't fly, so they couldn't affect Lin Shi, who was hovering in midair. No wonder so few origin beasts survived. Perhaps they were confined to a small area to lure high-tier origin beasts deeper into this white forest. In this white forest, maybe only aquatic origin beasts could escape. Lin Shi suddenly realized something. The giant crocodile he met earlier probably didn't want to attack Xiao Bai and the others. It was warning them to quickly leave this bizarre forest. If his guess was right, this bizarre white vine already possessed very high intelligence, making even a Tier 7 giant crocodile wary. Could it be an 8th tier mutated plant? Just as Lin Shi was hovering in midair, deep in thought, a sharp whistling sound pierced the air from behind. Lin Shi's expression changed. Fortunately, his apocalyptic habits kept him constantly on high alert. Even in a safe place, let alone his current position, which wasn't absolutely safe. The giant chakram under his feet quickly carried Lin Shi away, dodging the vine whipping at him from behind. At the same time, Lin Shi spun around, throwing a punch at top speed, striking right at that blood-red vine. Bam! A crisp sound rang out. The red vine and Lin Shi's fist collided. At the same time, a faint sound of bone cracking came from Lin Shi's arm. Both his arm and the vine retracted faster than they had struck. Lin Shi was knocked back by the immense force, swaying in midair. He didn't expect a plant to be so tough. The gloves on his hands were a product of the Scientific Research Institute, capable of channeling origin power and acting as steel knuckles, yet they were shattered by the vine. Thanks to the gloves, Lin Shi was able to turn around and counterattack. He wasn't going to use his bare body to clash with this bizarre vine. The vine probably didn't expect its long-charged sneak attack to fail, let alone be broken by a human, whether out of anger or pain. Instantly, an invisible wave spread out from the bottom of the pit. Lin Shi was very familiar with this kind of power, a spiritual power attack. Although he knew it was a spiritual power attack, it was too fast, almost impossible to defend against. By the time Lin Shi realized it, his ears were ringing, and he nearly lost control of the giant chakram. Luckily, his spiritual power was strong, and the chakram immediately stabilized. He broke into a cold sweat. Thank goodness he had just dodged the vine's attack. If he had been knocked down by the vine, and then hit by this mental shockwave, he definitely wouldn't have had time to react, and would have plummeted straight to the bottom of the pit. Lin Shi turned to look at the edge of the pit. The area that was previously swarming with white armored bugs now had at least several 100,000 of them lying belly up. So it was a kamikaze attack, sacrificing 10,000 to kill 800? The white vine couldn't speak, so naturally, it couldn't answer. After this spiritual power attack, it seemed to have exhausted its other offensive methods and fell silent. You're out of tricks? My turn. Lin Shi clenched his still-throbbing fist. Just one vine tentacle had nearly fractured his bones. He was almost certain this was an 8th tier mutated plant. Lin Shi took out a jerrycan of gasoline from his storage space, opened the cap, and poured it evenly into the pit. After one can, he took out a second, a third, a fourth. The massive pit provided the perfect conditions for burning gasoline. When the first can of gasoline was poured, the white vine didn't know what it was. It instinctively absorbed some. Then, like a child eating something distasteful, it spat the gasoline back out. The pit was huge. Lin Shi had to pour over 20 cans, a whole ton of gasoline, before he stopped. Then, he took out a lighter, flicked it on, and tossed it into the pit. The lighter fell perfectly into the skull of an unknown giant origin beast. There was a layer of gasoline inside the skull. Gasoline meets fire, and it ignites. The flames roared to life. Fueled by the gasoline, in just a few breaths, the fire engulfed the entire pit. Actually, Lin Shi had underestimated this vine. Controlling so many white armored bugs wasn't something an ordinary mutated plant could do. After devouring a massive number of origin beasts, the vine had reached the threshold between Tier 8 and Tier 9. If Lin Shi hadn't shown up, given a few more months to continue controlling the white armored bugs to herd outside origin beasts and provide nutrients for itself. It could have even evolved to Tier 9. Tier 9 was a realm that even the hidden families didn't fully understand. Any species that reached Tier 9 could transcend the limits of its kind and break its own shackles. By then, if Lin Shi came back, he would only be able to run for his life. And this white vine would use the massive number of origin beasts in the Amazon rainforest as nutrients, control the white armored bugs, and expand its territory to cover all of South America. But right now, an 8th tier mutated plant was still just a plant. As long as it was a plant, it had a plant's weaknesses. The vine tentacles quickly caught fire. Sizzle. Even though the vine couldn't make a sound, Lin Shi could almost hear its ear-piercing screams. In an instant, the surrounding white trees all shook. The vine at the bottom of the pit writhed frantically like an octopus on a hot iron plate. But this struggle was clearly futile. The white vine realized this too. With gasoline as an accelerant, no matter how much it twisted, it couldn't put out the fire. The white vine stopped writhing and curled up. It tightly coiled all its vines together, forming a sphere over 10 meters in diameter. Instantly, the vine sphere burst into a massive fireball. In the blink of an eye, Lin Shi realized the spiritual power field suppressing him had vanished. The surrounding bugs seemed to lose control, fleeing in panic. Many even plunged into the roaring fire pit, burning to a crisp with crackling sounds. But just a moment later, the white armored bugs calmed down again. Lin Shi watched in astonishment as they simultaneously backed away, using their bodies to push snow into the fire pit. The pit instantly filled with thick, white smoke. Sizzle. Lin Shi had to admit, this mutated plant possessed intelligence no less than a human's. It could come up with multiple countermeasures in such a short time. What a pity. A plant couldn't learn chemistry. It didn't know that gasoline couldn't be put out by normal means. Everyone knows gasoline is lighter than water. It just floats on the surface and keeps burning. The snow falling into the pit would quickly melt into water, and this water would spread the gasoline to places that originally couldn't catch fire, making the blaze even fiercer. Lin Shi had poured over 20 tons of gasoline into the pit. Even if there were several times more snow, it would be useless. But he couldn't just stand by and watch the white vine try to save itself. He steered the giant chakram down to a clearing, brought Hua Hua and Ji out of his storage space, and used mental shocks to harass the swarm of bugs. Hua Hua arched its back, let out a meow, and unleashed a mental shockwave toward the densest cluster of bugs. Instantly, the white armored bugs pushing the snow collapsed in droves. Little Ji wasn't about to be outdone and also released a mental shockwave. Lin Shi stood in front of the two pets, gripping the giant chakram tightly, infusing it with origin power. Then, he commanded the chakram to chop down at the vine sphere in the pit. Sensing danger, the red vine that had attacked Lin Shi earlier reappeared. This red vine had been hiding in the center of the plant. It was the white vine's killer move. But it couldn't even withstand Lin Shi's fist, so how could it endure the razor-sharp giant chakram? According to the 5 elements, metal counters wood, and fire counters metal. Amidst the billowing steam, the chakram and the red vine clashed. The red vine was severed instantly. The chakram didn't slow down at all. It cleaved into the vine sphere, slicing through a white vine to reveal a hollow interior. A loud explosion erupted from the center of the white vine. The white armored bugs pushing the snow froze. A second later, all the white armored bugs abandoned the fire and charged madly at Lin Shi. It's getting desperate. Lin Shi's expression didn't change. He recalled the chakram, seamlessly pulled a staff from his storage space, and scooped up Hua Hua and Ji. Before the white armored bugs could surround him, he flew up, hovering dozens of meters above the ground. Then he repeated his previous actions. The white armored bugs on the ground couldn't find their target and swarmed in a frenzy. The fire continued to rage. The 8th tier white vine had gained self-awareness. In its limited time of awareness, it only knew the law of the jungle. It had no concept of schemes or tactics. But now it did. It couldn't hit its target, could only take a beating, and had to endure the torment of the burning fire. It wanted to save itself, but Lin Shi kept harassing it from the sky, occasionally dropping down to deliver a chopping blow. The white vine twitched incessantly. It was furious. The white vine felt it was being targeted. Similarly, Lin Shi had the same feeling. The terrifying spiritual power of this vine, at close range, could block his own spiritual power. He couldn't even extend his spiritual power too far from his body, let alone control weapons from a distance. It almost completely countered his telekinesis. Therefore, he absolutely couldn't let this thing grow stronger. These two beings, inherently hostile to each other, had been locked in a life-and-death struggle from the moment Lin Shi stepped into the White Forest. At this moment, Lin Shi still didn't know that this 8th-tier mutated plant was about to become the key to his own advancement to Tier 8. The snow pushed into the pit by the white armored bugs was quickly melted by the fire and evaporated into steam. The entire pit was shrouded in thick fog. From above, Lin Shi controlled the giant chakram, aiming straight at the white vine and slashing relentlessly. The vine was forced on the defensive, while Lin Shi acted like a diligent lumberjack, chopping without pause. After severing 7 vine branches, the white vine seemed to fly into a rage. The disruptive spiritual power field reappeared. But this time, after deploying the spiritual power field, the vine seemed to significantly lose control over the white armored bugs. The white armored bugs further away began to retreat and flee. The giant chakram in midair lost control due to this force field and plummeted into the billowing white smoke of the pit. Lin Shi wasn't worried at all. The durability of the giant chakram wasn't something ordinary fire could destroy. If it did get damaged, he'd just take it back to Oldly for repairs. Lin Shi told Hua Hua and Ji to keep harassing the white armored bugs, while he pulled another barrel of gasoline from his storage space, adding fuel to the fire. This 8th-tier mutated plant definitely had other tricks up its sleeve. He wanted to use the most foolproof method to eradicate this mutated plant. Hua Hua and Ji muttered beside him. Sure enough, you can mess with anyone, but never mess with the master. So scary. In the time that followed, the white vine tried everything, desperately commanding a massive number of white armored bugs to jump into the pit, hoping to use their sheer numbers to smother the flames. But even if 1,000,000 white armored bugs jumped in, it was useless. The bugs managed to smother part of the fire with their bodies, but when the white armored bugs at the bottom burned to death, they became the perfect fuel, making the bottom of the pit rumble as the fire burned even more fiercely. This time, there was no need for the white armored bugs to push snow. The snow around the pit quickly melted and seeped into the ground. Lin Shi watched the roaring flames without changing his expression. This massive fire burned through the night. The towering flames illuminated the pitch-black forest. By midnight, the disruptive spiritual power field vanished. Lin Shi retrieved the blackened, scorching hot giant chakram back into his storage space. Exhausted, Hua Hua and Ji also returned to the storage space. Back on the ground, Lin Shi released his pack of origin beasts to wipe out the surviving white armored bugs, which were now running around like headless chickens. He only kept the Demon King by his side. Without the white vine's control, the white armored bugs had no tactics and no organization. They scattered in panic under the trampling of Lin Shi's origin beast legion. At this moment, Lin Shi stood dozens of meters away from the pit. Even from this distance, he could still feel the intense heat beneath his feet. If it were any other evolver here today, whether Tier 6, Tier 7, or even Tier 8, they would find it hard to suppress and destroy a mutated plant capable of controlling millions of white armored bugs like Lin Shi did. What kind of evolved being carries dozens of tons of fuel around with them? What kind of evolved being can hover in midair, rendering all attacks useless? Even an army of evolved beings attacking would only be crushed and wiped out alive when facing such a massive swarm of white armored bugs. Only Lin Shi could pull this off in this situation. But when Lin Shi used his spiritual power to scan the bottom of the pit, he suddenly noticed something wrong. At the center of the pit, a pile of pitch-black, charred vines seemed to have given up resisting, lying motionless at the bottom. His spiritual power pierced through the charred layers of vines, clearly seeing that the inside of the vine was still intact under the thick protection. It was only heated up, but its life force had completely vanished. A Tier 8 creature couldn't be this fragile. He had prepared to burn it for days and nights. Did this mutated plant die before he even really got started? But if it wasn't dead, why was there no trace of life force in the pit? Something's wrong. When Lin Shi probed his spiritual power into the center of the vine, he found the core was hollow. The red vine that had ambushed him earlier was gone. At the bottom of the dozen-meter-wide vine cluster, countless hollow vine tentacles grew downward like a dense spider web, spreading everywhere and connecting the entire white forest. Shedding its skin like a golden cicada, Lin Shi's eyes widened. He had underestimated this mutated vine, a plant that actually knew how to hide its intentions, abandoning the majority of its body to escape. You have to understand, that massive body still contained an enormous amount of energy. The spiritual power field had only vanished recently, proving the vine couldn't have gone far. Lin Shi closed his eyes, deploying his full spiritual power along the hollow vine tentacles to search. Countless hollow vines underground connected to the vast white forest. Every single vine tentacle was a white tree. Simply put, the entire area covered in white trees was its territory. And this territory was larger than a whole province in Xia country. No wonder those trees could control the bug swarm from so far away. It turned out the entire vine was this colossal. Compared to it, the divine tree Lin Shi had encountered before was like a mosquito to an elephant. Lin Shi was horrified. If it hadn't run into him, he couldn't even imagine how far this bizarre vine would have grown. Lin Shi's current speed of thought was beyond compare to an ordinary person. These thoughts merely flashed through his mind. He gave a quick word to the demon king guarding beside him, then focused on searching for the mutated vine. The underground vines were a tangled, complex mess. For an ordinary person, it would be very difficult to search through them one by one in a short time. But Lin Shi's spiritual power, ever since reaching Tier 6 and gaining telekinesis, had been trained in multitasking for over 2 years. He could simultaneously control thousands of origin power fragments to attack individually. This search was nothing to him. A few minutes later, Lin Shi opened his eyes, a golden light flashing in them. Found it. Lin Shi used telekinesis to fly up, quickly giving chase toward the east. The Demon King followed closely behind. This mutated plant was now weaker than ever before. Even at its strongest, it barely posed a threat to Lin Shi, let alone now. It was right in the palm of his hand. As Lin Shi flew, his spiritual power remained locked onto a red creature the size of a soccer ball. Calling it a creature rather than a plant, because Lin Shi found it hard to associate it with flora. He never expected that inside that white mutated vine was a red mass. It looked like a lump of meat. On this meat lump were things resembling tentacles, looking like a virus under a microscope. Right now, the red meat lump was being pulled along by the red vine Lin Shi had just severed, moving quite fast through the air. However, this speed was only fast compared to ordinary origin beasts. In just a few minutes, with the flight speed of Tier 7 telekinesis, Lin Shi caught up to this bizarre creature. Lin Shi blocked its path, drew his great sword, and thrust it hard into the pipeline. The great sword plunged deep into the ground. Under the control of his spiritual power, the great sword chopped straight down at the red vine below. The pipeline formed by the hollow vine grew narrower the deeper it went into the forest. With nowhere left to hide, the red vine was struck and could only writhe helplessly in a frenzy. Let's see where you run now. Lin Shi pulled out a shovel and started digging down. The Demon King followed suit, digging down alongside Lin Shi. Before long, the meat lump was dug up. Halfway through, the meat lump even tried to sever the red vine itself to escape. But it was just a lump, with no hands or feet. How far could it run? Very quickly, Lin Shi hooked it out from the rootless tree stump. Seeing the meat lump, the Demon King looked disgusted, took a few steps back, and rode on the snow-covered ground. Master, what is this thing? It looks gross. The meat lump squirmed a few times. Too bad it didn't have that red vine anymore. Its other tentacles were too short to help it escape. Under Lin Shi's watchful eyes, it couldn't get away. He had put in so much effort, he wasn't about to let this mutated plant slip away. Well, let's temporarily consider it a plant. Lin Shi didn't answer the Demon King. He himself didn't know what this thing was. Initially, he was certain the white vine was a mutated plant. But why was the core of this mutated plant this thing? Could it be that when plants evolve to a high stage, they transform from simple multicellular organisms into more complex creatures? These questions were secondary. The most important thing was, is this thing edible? It didn't look like food. With Lin Shi's current physique and poison resistance, He had even tasted a mutated plant that turned his hands green. But this thing was covered in tentacles and still squirming. Linsher really couldn't stomach it. To check if this was a plant and if it was edible, Linsher had a way. With a mere thought, Kika the rabbit fell from his storage space into his hands. Linsher was about to ask Kika if the meat lump was edible, but unexpectedly, the moment Kika appeared, it lunged straight at the meat lump. That greedy, desperate look was exactly like when Linsher discovered the heart of the divine tree. Fortunately, Linsher was much faster than Kika, grabbing the rabbit as it recklessly lunged toward the vine meat lump. "Don't mess around," Linsher scolded lightly. Only then did Kika remember whose hands it was in, sighing continuously to show its remorse. After living with Gigi for so long, Kika had picked up many of Gigi's bad habits, playing innocent, flattering, and begging for mercy like a pro. Linsher pointed at the meat lump and asked, "Is this edible?" Kika nodded repeatedly, its small eyes sparkling. "Edible. Edible. Very nutritious." It even used its short little paws to gesture to Linsher, urging him to eat it quickly. "It's really edible?" Kika nodded vigorously. Linsher's mouth twitched as he glanced at the still squirming meat lump. His face showed an indescribable expression. Ultimately, he decided against using Kika as a guinea pig and put the rabbit back into his storage space. Actually, Linsher had already guessed it. The white trees from before weren't poisonous, so this thing probably wasn't either. The evolutionary path of mutated plants is usually very straightforward. This mutated plant clearly evolved towards spiritual power, not defense. Mutated plants focused on defense either have potent toxins or just increased durability, making them inedible. Herbal-type mutated plants are usually good at hiding. In short, the evolutionary paths of mutated plants are always bizarre and diverse. Hearing Kika say it was edible, the Demon King quietly took a few steps back, seemingly afraid Linsher would offer this disgusting meat lump to it. In fact, Linsher did have that thought. After all, he and the Demon King were practically one entity. The Demon King getting stronger meant he got stronger. But seeing the Demon King's "I'd rather die than eat it" expression, Linsher finally dropped the idea. Linsher used a shovel to scoop the meat lump into a container, not touching it with his hands throughout the entire process. He stored the red vine tentacles that had fallen off the meat lump into his space, then turned to the Demon King, who was standing over 10 meters away. "Why are you standing so far away? Get back here." The Demon King nodded, putting on a "you go first, master, I'll definitely follow" look. It wasn't until Linsher flew up that the Demon King breathed a sigh of relief, its canine face clearly showing a narrow escape from death expression. "Scared me to death." Anyway, when Linsher returned to the old massive pit, there were no beasts left there. He had agreed with his Origin Beast Legion that after wiping out all the white armored bugs, they would gather at this pit. Right now, all the Origin Beasts had gone chasing after the white armored bugs. Since he wanted to wipe out all the Origin Beasts in the Amazon basin, these white armored bugs absolutely had to be eradicated. Bugs reproduce very quickly. Just looking at the scale of this white armored bug swarm was proof enough. If he waited until he finished clearing out the Origin Beasts elsewhere before coming back to kill them, who knows how much effort it would take. After losing the spiritual power field, the white armored bug's ability to evade spiritual power detection also vanished. Once the Origin Beast Legion returned, he would clean up the remaining ones. After landing, Linsher looked at the wooden box in his hand. Ever since he put the meat lump, the core of the vine, into the wooden box, he had kept his focus locked onto it. His spiritual power was fixed on it. If the meat lump made any sudden moves, Linsher would immediately throw it down and chop it to pieces. Fortunately, on the flight back, the meat lump was very well behaved, making no unnecessary movements. Actually, it couldn't move even if it wanted to. Its most fragile core was now exposed to the air, locked in a wooden box by Linsher. The twitching tentacles were actually just it trembling. It looked scary, but its actual combat power was zero. Linsher frowned, pulling a dagger from his storage space and waving it in front of the meat lump. "How do I eat this? Slice it up or braise it whole?" The meat lump trembled even more violently. Ultimately, Linsher decided to slice it up and braise it. Eating it raw was out of the question. He could never eat it raw in this lifetime. Lin Shi placed the meat lump on the ground, using the dagger to find a spot to cut. The meat lump trembled violently, seemingly aware of its fate. Just as Lin Shi was about to bring the knife down, a strange sensation appeared in his consciousness. Lin Shi felt a sudden, bizarre mental connection between himself and the meat lump. "I beg you, don't kill me." It wasn't the meat lump speaking, but Lin Shi suddenly feeling the thought transmitted from the meat lump into his mind. Surprised, he tried using his thoughts to communicate with the meat lump. "Are you talking to me?" The meat lump confirmed with its spiritual power and continued begging for mercy. "Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Don't kill me." Lin Shi sneered. "Why shouldn't I kill you? Eating you will make me stronger. Give me a reason not to kill you." The meat lump's ability to express thoughts seemed very limited, only continuously begging Lin Shi not to kill it. Would Lin Shi spare a bug just because it begged for mercy? Of course not. Moreover, compared to humans, mutated plants were just another species. The strong defeat the weak, survival of the fittest. Just as the meat lump had devoured countless origin beasts to evolve, Lin Shi eating it was only natural. There was no reason, nor any issue of principle. The strong devour the weak. That's the law of the apocalypse. As if sensing Lin Shi's thoughts, the meat lump trembled even more violently. Just as Lin Shi's dagger was about to pierce the meat lump, it transmitted another thought. "Don't kill me. I can help you get stronger." Lin Shi stopped his dagger midair. "How can you make me stronger?" The meat lump replied, "I can transfer energy to you." "Transfer it to me?" The meat lump stammered for a while before Lin Shi finally understood its meaning. It had the unique trait of being able to absorb energy from living creatures, and it could also transfer energy back to a living creature. And the way the meat lump communicated meant Lin Shi had to bring it close to his forehead. That distance was too dangerous for Lin Shi. You should understand clearly. At such a close distance, a nimble human is much faster than you. If you try anything funny, I'll kill you instantly, and then let you watch as I chop your body into 1,000 pieces. Lin Shi deliberately threatened it. Then, he showed the meat lump images of him torturing others. The meat lump trembled violently, repeatedly indicating it wouldn't dare. But Lin Shi still wasn't at ease. "Fine, it's cleaner to just kill you." With that, Lin Shi's killing intent surged. The dagger in his hand swiftly stabbed down, piercing the meat lump's skin before stopping. Throughout the process, the meat lump didn't resist at all, only letting out a scream in Lin Shi's head. This time, Lin Shi finally felt reassured about the meat lump. "I was just joking with you." The meat lump whimpered. Lin Shi picked up the meat lump. Despite looking disgusting, it felt okay to hold, like gripping a giant red hairball. The meat lump asked to be brought closer, a little closer. Lin Shi complied. His muscles were tense, in a defensive posture, all his focus poured into the meat lump. Just as he said, if the meat lump made any sudden moves, Lin Shi would kill it instantly. Of course, beside Lin Shi was the Demon King, ready to attack at a moment's notice. The Demon King couldn't hear the telepathic conversation between Lin Shi and the meat lump. Having just followed Lin Shi back to the massive pit, it saw Lin Shi pick up that disgusting meat lump and bring it close to his face. The dog shook its head vigorously. "Master isn't going to eat that horrible thing raw, is he? No way. That's impossible." The Demon King thought that if Lin Shi ever tried to gag it with that meat lump again, it would definitely be traumatized. Fortunately, that terrifying scene didn't happen. Half believing, Lin Shi brought the meat lump close to his glabella. A massive yet gentle wave of spiritual power radiated from the meat lump, then flooded into Lin Shi's glabella. Lin Shi closed his eyes, his spiritual power tense, guarding against the meat lump using some sort of mind control trick. Normally, only those with weak willpower or feeble spiritual power are easily controlled, but Lin Shi still had to be on guard. Lin Shi's worries were unfounded. A familiar sensation, like soaking in warm water, appeared in his consciousness. The last time he felt this was when his spiritual power broke through. At the same time, a massive and pure wave of origin power surged into his body from the hand touching the meat lump. This power was too overwhelming. Luckily, Lin Shi's Tier 7 body was incredibly tough, allowing him to endure it. If Lin Shi opened his cornucopia attribute panel right now, he would see the spiritual power and origin power stats skyrocketing dizzily. In the blink of an eye, his spiritual power jumped from over 25,000 points to 30,000, then 35,000, 40,000, straight up to 50,000. As for his origin power, it shot up from over 500,000 to 1,000,000 at an astonishing speed. Unfortunately, Lin Shi didn't have time to check the attribute panel. A wave of drowsiness washed over him, like soaking in amniotic fluid, just like the feeling when he ate that spiritual power-enhancing mutated plant and broke through before. The last thought in Lin Shi's mind was, I'm done for. Am I breaking through again? His first instinct was that it was impossible. You have to know, Lin Shi's last breakthrough wasn't that long ago. He never expected to break through again. In this situation. Moreover, he completely didn't expect the meat lump to transfer so much energy all at once, even containing a massive amount of spiritual power. It wasn't that Lin Shi was careless, but he was thinking from a human perspective. He thought a normal person, even to save their life, wouldn't hand over all their assets at once, but would give them slowly, right? Otherwise, they'd lose their value, which would just lead to death anyway. If he had known earlier that the meat lump looked smart, but was actually this simple-minded. If he had known the meat lump would give him enough energy to instantly break through, Lin Shi definitely would have prepared more thoroughly. Right before passing out, Lin Shi even thought, is this the meat lump scheme? Lin Shi was definitely overthinking it. It was just a plant. Even if it had some intelligence, it had only ever interacted with origin beasts. When dealing with a human, how could it scheme so much? It said it would give Lin Shi energy, so it gave Lin Shi 90% of its energy. It was terrified of being chopped into 1,000 pieces. Initially, the meat lump only planned to provide half its energy. But because Lin Shi's threats were too effective, the meat lump felt that if it didn't give it its all, it wouldn't be able to keep its life. That's why it made the rare move of transferring so much energy to Lin Shi all at once. Having survived the dark apocalypse, Lin Shi still couldn't believe there was anyone, no, any plant, in this world so selfless. In other words, he and the meat lump simply weren't operating on the same wavelength. That's why this situation happened. Furthermore, Lin Shi had never met a creature that could transfer spiritual power to others. He originally thought the energy the meat lump transferred was just origin power. Getting to the bottom of it, it was probably because this mutated plant was a special existence to begin with. Ordinary origin beasts rarely evolved towards spiritual power, let alone plants. And individuals with the potential to evolve to Tier 9 were incredibly rare. You'd be hard-pressed to find a few in the whole world. Most died prematurely during the evolutionary process. Therefore, the meat lump was very likely the only mutated plant of its kind on the entire blue planet. Any creature that evolved to Tier 9 was practically on par with a god, let alone such a special spiritual power mutated plant. So, you couldn't blame Lin Shi for entering the advancement process without thorough preparation. With this amount of transferred energy, if it were anyone else, exploding and dying would be getting off easy. Luckily, Lin Shi didn't waste it. The Demon King stood nearby, watching in fear as Lin Shi brought the meat lump close. But seeing Lin Shi didn't eat it directly, it breathed a sigh of relief. However, before it could fully exhale, Lin Shi's hand holding the meat lump dropped, and his head slumped forward, as if he had suddenly passed out. Woof, woof, woof. What's wrong with Master? The Demon King panicked. Was Master harmed by this disgusting meat lump? It hurriedly nudged Lin Shi with its paw. The unconscious Lin Shi was pushed to the ground. Instantly, the Demon King sensed the distinct aura of advancement radiating from Lin Shi's body. The Demon King's canine face showed shock. How did this happen? Master is advancing. The Demon King approached Lin Shi, checked his breathing, then felt his heartbeat. Confirming Lin Shi's vital signs were normal, and he was indeed advancing, it finally breathed a sigh of relief. Then it turned to look at the meat lump. The meat lump had fallen from Lin Shi's hand. After transferring most of its spiritual power and origin power to Lin Shi, the meat lump's entire body had shrunk significantly. Even its tentacles could barely move, looking extremely weak. With the Demon King's intelligence, it naturally knew everything happening to Lin Shi was related to this meat lump. The Demon King felt its paws itching, but it held back the urge to smash it. The meat lump. A loyal dog must know its place and not act on its own. It would wait for its master to wake up and deal with this meat lump. Realizing Lin Shi was just advancing, the Demon King wasn't too worried. Its canine eyes began to gleam with intelligence. The Demon King looked around, bit off a few branches from a nearby white tree, and spread them on the ground. It pulled Lin Shi onto them so its master wouldn't get cold. Fortunately, the ground was only slightly damp. There was no snow. Plus, in the massive pit nearby, the remains of the white vine and countless origin beast corpses were burning fiercely, providing warmth. Actually, even if the Demon King hadn't done this, Lin Shi's Tier 7 Evolver physique wouldn't have let him freeze to death anyway. As for the meat lump, the Demon King used a few tree trunks to build a makeshift cage and locked it inside, just to prevent this little thing from escaping while it protected its master. Once done, the Demon King laid down beside Lin Shi to keep him warm. The Demon King seemed to really enjoy being close to Lin Shi. It had been a long time since it got to be this close to its master. The next morning, the Origin Beast Legion returned one after another after a night of hunting. The Demon King deployed Xiao Bai and the wolf pack within a radius of a few dozen meters to form the inner defense ring. The long-armed ape and tyrant's 2 squads were deployed within a 1,000-meter radius as the outer defense ring. As for the clouded leopard, the Demon King tasked it with finding food to supply the entire Origin Beast Legion. As for itself, it stayed by Lin Shi's side, not leaving for a single step. The Demon King ordered the beasts that, without its command, no origin beast other than itself was allowed to approach Lin Shi. Violators would be killed. When by Lin Shi's side, the Demon King always put Lin Shi first, obeying his commands. Normally, it was very obedient and gentle beside Lin Shi. This was the first time the Demon King had commanded the entire army when Lin Shi couldn't give orders. At this moment, the Demon King truly displayed the majesty of a beast king. While the Demon King was arranging the defense tasks, Chen Tianxiong also led his people back to the Chen family base. After Lin Shi left the base, Geshu prepared to act quickly, so they clashed with Chen Tianxiong leading his people back. Initially, Geshu and the Chen family elders fought to a standstill. But when Chen Tianxiong and his subordinates joined the battle, the tide turned completely. Geshu's forces were quickly defeated. Those who were killed, and those who were captured were captured. After quelling the internal unrest in the base and resting for a few days, Chen Tianxiong sent people to the Amazon basin again. That was 7 days later. After returning, Chen Tianxiong had to handle the food supply in the base and reassure the survivors. Because it was too dangerous last time, he couldn't just send a team of Tier 4 evolvers to take the risk. So he dragged 6th Master Chen, who had planned to rest, out to be the muscle. The team entering the Amazon basin this time was led by 6th Master Chen. The team included Chen Wu, who insisted on going, Chen Sheng, who was in charge of logistics and medical care, and a few people who weren't in Chen Tianxiong's team last time. Even Chen Jianxing, knowing he needed to support Lin Shi, tagged along. Chen Quan, that chubby guy, also wanted to go, but was scolded by Chen Jianxing and had to obediently stay at the base. The group arrived at the outskirts of the White Forest when Lin Shi had been unconscious for 8 days. Initially, 6th Master Chen only led everyone to search for Lin Shi's whereabouts on the outskirts. As a result, not only did they not see a trace of Lin Shi, but they didn't even see a single origin beast. Chen Wu felt like he was going crazy from having too much free time. Lujia, let's go a bit deeper. Senior Lin Shi is so powerful, he must have cleared out all the prime beasts on the outskirts. We're here as logistics support for Senior Lin Shi. We can't just stay on the outer edge forever. Chen Lujia thought for a moment. You're right. He quickly forgot Chen Tianxiong's instructions to be extra careful before they set off, and said, then let's keep moving. The group continued, advancing deeper into the White Forest. They headed straight for the location where Chen Tianxiong and the others had been surrounded by the swarm of white armored bugs. Last time, Chen Lujia had been bitten by a snake as soon as he arrived and fell unconscious. By the time he woke up, the bugs had all retreated. So, even though Chen Tianxiong described it as extremely dangerous, Chen Lujia wasn't very impressed. On the contrary, Chen Wu and Chen Sheng were extremely familiar with this place. It was in this very area that they had been trapped for nearly 2 months. But Chen Wu, being open-minded by nature, had forgotten all about the previous danger. His mind was filled only with the image of Lin Shi descending like a god from heaven. As a martial artist himself, Lin Shi's strength in their previous encounter had left him in awe, as if seeing a deity. Now, in Chen Wu's heart, Lin Shi's status was almost equal to Chen Tianqiang's. This time, Chen Wu had only rested for a few days before wanting to tag along, hoping to see Lin Shi again soon. Seeing Chen Lujia leading the group deeper, Chen Wu said nothing, but Chen Sheng spoke up to stop them. Lujia, we shouldn't go any deeper. Chen Lujia asked, why? Chen Sheng was known for his steadiness in the family, and Chen Lujia highly valued him. If Chen Sheng's breakthrough speed was a bit faster, becoming a candidate for the family head wouldn't be impossible. He wanted to hear Chen Sheng's opinion. Chen Sheng said solemnly, this is where we were surrounded by the bug swarm last time. We let them escape then, so it's very likely we'll run into them again. With our current strength, we might end up in the same situation. Chen Sheng's words were a bit vague, and the others didn't quite understand. The fact that Chen Tianqiang, a level 6 powerhouse, and the family elites were trapped by a bug swarm was never revealed in the base. This made everyone curious. Chen Tianqiang had reported internally that they encountered a powerful prime beast and were saved by Lin Shi. He never mentioned that they were trapped for nearly 2 months and almost died. Doing so would be too humiliating. As the family head, he had to save face. Therefore, for this group, besides Chen Wu, no one knew what kind of bugs could make the always cautious Chen Sheng so terrified. Before the others could react, Chen Wu voiced his opposition. What are you afraid of? Senior Lin Shi could wipe out that bug swarm with a single glance if they dare to show up. If I just shout, Senior Lin Shi will definitely come save us. Chen Sheng frowned and objected. We're here to provide logistics support, not to cause trouble for the senior. Besides, how are you going to call him? Yell until your throat is hoarse. Chen Wu rolled his eyes. Ignoring Chen Sheng, he retorted, you said yourself we're here for logistics. So what are we doing here? Standing guard for the senior? Lu Jia brought a lot of prime force pills this time to replenish the senior. How can we do that if we don't even see him? The others looked at Chen Sheng, then at Chen Wu, not knowing who to listen to. Oh right, they should listen to Lu Jia. Everyone looked at Chen Lujia, waiting for his decision. Chen Lujia stroked his beard, finding both of them reasonable. All right, let's search around this area first. If we don't find him or any bugs, we'll keep going deeper. Everyone agreed. Chen Sheng wanted to say something, opened his mouth, but ultimately held back. Forget it. This time he brought a special bug repellent, plus they weren't fighting alone. Overall, it wouldn't be worse than last time. Because the group was trapped for 2 months last time, Chen Tianqiang had discussed it with everyone in the family before they set off. If they didn't return in 10 days, he would personally lead a rescue team. Thinking of this, Chen Sheng didn't object anymore. The group began searching for traces of Lin Shi. As a result, not only did they not find Lin Shi, they didn't even see a single bug that Chen Sheng mentioned. There weren't even any other prime beasts. Everyone was initially shocked, then turned doubtful. Chen Wu yelled the whole way, insisting that Lin Shi had wiped out all the prime beasts in the forest. Because of this, everyone admired Lin Shi's strength even more. Some people secretly glanced at Chen Sheng, thinking he had been scared out of his wits last time and was too cowardly. Chen Sheng noticed those looks, coughed lightly, and explained. Perhaps Senior Lin Shi has already driven all the bugs away. There are no traces of any prime beasts in this area. It seems Senior Lin Shi has gone deep into the forest. As expected of Senior Lin Shi, clearing out such a large area of prime beasts in just 8 days. Chen Wu excitedly clenched his fists, as if he were the one who killed those prime beasts. This time, no one objected. Chen Lujia led everyone deeper into the forest. 2 days later, the deeper they went, the more terrified everyone felt. Not because they found danger, but because the entire forest was too quiet. Let alone people, they didn't even see the shadow of a prime beast. As for the bugs Chen Sheng mentioned, what were they? Along the way, they only saw trees, no other living creatures. They didn't even have a chance to show off their skills. At night, while resting, someone looked at the stark white trees in the forest and said, let's chop down a few trees for firewood. These trees are very hard. With our strength, it would take at least 2 hours to chop one down, and it consumes a lot of prime force. Chen Sheng reminded them. Hearing this, The person gave up the idea. After traveling for 2 days, he didn't want to spend 2 hours chopping trees at night. But there was someone who was truly too bored to sit still. "I'm bored anyway, let me give it a try." Saying that, he pulled out the dagger from his back and slashed at the white tree. Crack! The man used all his strength, not expecting that with one strike, the not-so-thick trunk would snap cleanly. He almost fell face-first into the snow because he used too much force. The inside of the trunk was hollow, not hard at all like Chen Sheng had said. Everyone turned to look at Chen Sheng. Chen Sheng stared in astonishment at the tree chopped in half, quickly stepping forward to inspect the cut. The cut was perfectly straight, clearly sliced. If the trees were this easy to chop, they would have chopped more for firewood last time. The truth was, last time when Chen Tianxiong led the team, everyone had tried chopping a few trees. They found it very difficult, so they gave up on having people chop many trees for firewood. Chen Wu also looked surprised, staring at the person who chopped the tree. "Damn, one strike and it's cut? Is your strength that great?" "I didn't use that much force." The person was also baffled. Chen Sheng drew his own weapon, walked up to another tree in the forest, and slashed at it. Again, one strike cut the tree. How is this possible? Chen Sheng couldn't maintain his calm expression. The trees were clearly very hard before. Very hard to chop. They didn't know that due to Lin Shi's actions, the meatball had drained all the prime force from the vines and those white trees to escape. Without prime force, these trees naturally became fragile and easy to break. Facing everyone's doubtful and confused looks, Chen Sheng briefly explained the situation when their group came here last time. The others understood. Maybe something happened to the trees in this forest. Someone hit the nail on the head. Chen Sheng pondered deeply. The family had said before that every white tree in this forest is very likely a branch of a high-level mutated plant, just like countless leaves on a giant tree. Each of these trees is a leaf of that mutated plant. What? This huge forest is just the branches of a mutated plant? Then what level must that mutated plant be? Someone couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Thinking about how deep they had gone into the forest, many couldn't help but shudder. Chen Wu glanced at the person who yelled. "What's there to be afraid of? We stayed here for 2 months last time, and these trees didn't do anything unusual. That proved these trees didn't harm people." They still hadn't guessed the connection between these trees and the white armored bugs, otherwise they wouldn't have said that. That night, except for Chun Lujia and Chun Wu, everyone else rested anxiously. No one felt this white forest was safe anymore. Chen Sheng alone spent the whole night studying the surrounding trees. Before the 3rd day, everyone set off again, heading deeper into the white forest. At this time, the Chen family group still didn't know that they were very close to Lin Shi's location. Ever since they learned these trees were branches of a high-level mutated plant, everyone detoured around them. After a night of studying, Chen Sheng had a preliminary understanding of these trees. He explained to everyone, "These trees have lost their prime force for some unknown reason, which is why they are so fragile. I observed last night, it's not just the area where we rested, but possibly the entire forest experiencing this phenomenon. Simply put, these trees are dead. It's very likely a problem with their core." Chen Sheng truly had a sharp mind, guessing the situation with 80 or 90% accuracy. After hearing Chen Sheng's words, someone tried chopping a few trees. Indeed, they snapped with a single strike. Immediately, everyone stopped being afraid. But they had only walked for a short while when they discovered traces of prime beasts. The footprints on the ground were very fresh, and judging by the messiness of the tracks, there were quite a few of them. So many footprints. Let's hope we didn't stumble into a prime beast's lair. Everyone looked at each other, seeing the worry in each other's eyes. Speak of the devil. And the devil appears. Before they could discuss their next plan, Chen Lujia's expression suddenly changed. "Oh no, there's a beast herd coming from behind. Run." The prime beasts in this forest had all been caught and eaten by the clouded leopard and its subordinates. Now, the clouded leopard usually hunted in the outer areas of the white forest. The beast herd that Chen Lujia and the others spotted was exactly the clouded leopard's herd returning from a hunt. But they had never seen the clouded leopard, let alone known it was Lin Shi's prime beast. The beast herd appeared from behind, so Chen Lujia naturally led everyone to run forward. But his jungle experience was lacking, and in his haste, He didn't notice that the direction they were running had even more prime beast footprints. It was Chen Sheng who first noticed the anomaly and signaled to stop. They ran in another direction. It was as if this central area had been set up with an inescapable net by Mon. Chen Lujia and the others quickly realized they were being attacked by two groups of prime beasts from the front and back. Most people were terrified. What do we do? Where do we run? Damn it. These beasts are so cunning. They actually know how to use tactics. They must have deliberately ambushed us here, waiting for us to arrive. This is really shooting ourselves in the foot. The Chen family felt certain that these cunning prime beasts had plotted to surround them. Chen Wu, if I told you even bugs know how to use tactics, you'd probably be scared to death. Chen Sheng, protected by everyone, remained the most level-headed. His mental power had already seen the prime beast herd approaching from behind. All leopards and lions. These prime beasts were of the same level as them. There was no way to escape. Running would only make them die faster. Stop running. Prepare to fight. Immediately, the Chen family realized that among the over 100 prime beasts behind them, none were below level 4. How could they escape? What made them even more desperate was that ahead, where they had just run from, Chen Lujia also spotted a high-level beast herd. Chen Sheng hurriedly asked what kind of beast herd it was, but Chen Lujia seemed in shock, just muttering, "How is this possible? How is this possible? That's impossible." Not long after, they knew why Chen Lujia had lost his composure. A herd of giant pandas marched forward with mighty steps, led by an extremely massive giant panda, charging right at them. Giant pandas? Why are there giant pandas here? Even if we rented giant pandas from Xia country, how could there be so many? Oh my god, it looks like when my mom took me to the city zoo in Xia country when I was a kid. If it were a normal day, seeing these adorable black and white creatures, they would definitely reminisce about the scenery of Xia country. But now was not the time for nostalgia. It's a level 6 prime beast. Chen Lujia's voice pulled everyone out of their shock. What? A level 6 prime beast? Lujia, which side has the level 6 prime beast? Tell us quickly, we'll run the other way. Someone asked urgently. A level 6 prime beast. The same level as the head of the Chen family. Encountering a level 6 prime beast, they had to prepare for the worst. If there was only a beast herd led by a level 5 prime beast on one side, they could still try to break through the encirclement. Even if it was a narrow escape, there was still a glimmer of hope for survival. But Chen Lujia's next words plunged everyone into despair. Chen Lujia said, "Both sides have a level 6 prime beast. 2 level 6 prime beasts." In the panic, someone dropped their weapon into the snow. The faint-hearted almost fainted. They hadn't expected to travel all this way without encountering a single prime beast, only to run into 2 level 6 prime beasts at the same time, plus 2 high-level beast herds. My luck is too terrible. Don't be afraid. I'll hold off one later. Listen to my command. Split up and run. Whoever can escape, escape. As the person with the highest status here, Chen Lujia initially wanted to say he would hold off both level 6 beasts, but he knew better and kept his mouth shut. He couldn't even hold off one. At this moment, Chen Lujia's mind was filled with, that old geezer Chen Tianxiong got me killed. Everyone in the Chen family was anxious. Chen Sheng, Chen Wu, and a few others no longer had any intention of running. In this situation, running would only make them die faster. Chen Sheng looked at Chen Wu. How about you try screaming your lungs out right now? Chen Sheng wasn't joking. The presence of prime beasts nearby proved that Lin Shi hadn't cleared this area yet. Then it was very likely he himself was somewhere around here. Chen Wu was already loud. If he could call Lin Shi, they might at least have a chance of surviving. The others also understood Chen Sheng's idea, but someone still asked worriedly, can Senior Lin Shi deal with 2 level 6 prime beasts at the same time? It's so dangerous, and we don't even know him well. Will he come save us? Everyone fell silent again. That's right, they didn't know Lin Shi well. Facing 2 powerful level 6 prime beasts, would Lin Shi risk his life to save them? Everyone wondered. If it were any of them, it would be hard to risk their lives to save strangers in the apocalypse. Even for relatives, they would have to weigh the options. Therefore, the others fell into despair again. The Chen family's situation unfolded in a flash. The Clouded Leopard and Bao Jun approached the Chen family group one after another. The pressure from the 2 level 6 prime beasts made many people's legs turn to jelly. especially when they saw many prime beasts among the leopards and lions carrying dead prey in their mouths, bloody and mangled, blood still dripping. At this moment, they couldn't help but imagine themselves becoming the prime beast's prey. They trembled in fear. In comparison, the giant panda herd on the other side looked much more pleasant. Even though their size was many times larger than before the apocalypse, they were still adorable national treasures. Even mutated, they were still fine. They could only comfort themselves that they were still cute. Giant pandas were originally fierce omnivores. This was going to cost them their lives. Senior Lin Shi, save us. Senior Lin Shi, save us. Chun Wu screamed at the top of his lungs. In this situation, besides screaming his throat raw, what else could he do? As for whether these prime beasts would attack when he screamed, Chun Wu had only heard that when encountering wild beasts, you must first suppress them with sound. Yell to let them know you're not easy to bully. Sure enough, after Chun Wu yelled a few times, the two prime beasts preparing to advance stopped. Seeing his yelling had an effect, Chun Wu yelled even more vigorously. Senior Lin Shi, save us. Senior Lin Shi, there are so many prime beasts here. Come kill them quickly. Senior Lin Shi. Senior. Woof woof woof. Senior Lin Shi. Roar. A whoop. Chun Wu yelled loudly while waving his arms and legs wildly. Chun Wu remembered before the apocalypse, when he went to the Amazon with friends, he learned some jungle survival skills. If an ordinary person without guns or weapons encounters a large beast, they absolutely must not turn and run. Instead, they must calmly take an offensive stance. If possible, coordinating with a roar would be even better. Then, while the beast is suspicious, slowly back away until out of the safe zone before running. Seeing his actions were very effective, Chun Wu hurriedly told the others, hurry up, yell with me. Focus your energy in your dantian. On my command, 1, 2, Senior Lin Shi, save us. Senior Lin Shi, save us. Even Chen Lujia disregarded his dignity and yelled, waving his arms and legs while yelling. The whole group looked worse than a bunch of monkeys in a zoo. They completely ignored the looks from the clouded leopard and Baojun, who were staring at them like they were a bunch of idiots and mental patients. The clouded leopard and Baojun gathered among the terrified Qin family group. The two beasts exchanged a few words. These people are calling the master's name. Why are they calling the master's name? They must know the master. Should we report this to Boss Muang? Report it. The master ordered us not to kill people casually. But this bunch looks dumber than two pigs. Does the master really know them? The clouded leopard and Baojun whispered to each other. In the eyes of the Qin family, they looked like they were discussing how to eat them deliciously. This terrified the group. If they knew Lin Shi was a prime beast and didn't eat humans, they might have felt more at ease. At most, they would just be bitten to death. Finally, the clouded leopard took on the task of reporting the appearance of these people to Mong, conveniently dragging today's prey along. Mong, who was guarding Lin Shi day and night by the large crater, heard the news brought by the clouded leopard and tilted its head. Knows the master? Mong guessed the clouded leopard was talking about the people from the Qin base. After all, Mong had encountered Chen Tianxiong and the others deep in the forest before. What did they say back then? Oh right, they said they would come back with medicine and logistics for the master. Mong recalled. So Mong signaled to the clouded leopard, you stay here and guard the master. I'll go take a look and be right back. At the same time, Mong glanced at Xiaobai not far away. Despite being together for many years, Mong still didn't completely trust the clouded leopard. Anything concerning Lin Shi's safety, Mong was extremely careful, even considering Lin Shi's life more important than its own. Xiaobai was very smart, understanding Ma Wang's intention in just a few seconds. As for that meatball, a few days ago, after Xiaobai returned, Mong had ordered Xiaobai to move the meatball, which it despised, dozens of meters away for Xiaobai to guard. At that time, Xiaobai looked at Mong with a puzzled expression, as if saying, Boss, are you serious? But ultimately, Xiaobai followed Ma Wang's orders. Right now, the meatball was surrounded by a pack of wolves, stared at by hundreds of giant wolves. It posed no threat to Lin Shi whatsoever. Mong walked forward. Seeing Mong, before the others could react, Chen Lujia, Chen Sheng, Chen Wu, and the rest were already excited. Senior Lin Shi is a prime beast, and he's here. Then Senior Lin Shi isn't far from us either. Qin Sheng had sharper observation skills. These prime beasts aren't attacking it. They're a pack. Chen Lujia looked again. It was true. Not only were they not attacking, all the prime beasts bowed their heads when Mong appeared. This scene was like what they usually saw when the family head was greeted in the base. A bold guess popped into Qin Sheng's mind. He blurted out, "These prime beasts are all subordinates of this white wolf." What? These prime beasts are all subordinates of this white wolf. Then what about those giant pandas? Everyone in the Chun family was terrified. Their minds were filled with shock, doubt, and disbelief. Because a herd of giant pandas being subordinates to a wolf. This army was truly bizarre. If that's the case, then that leopard and those lions and tigers just now, could they also be? Everyone in the Chun family looked at each other in astonishment. After all, everyone clearly saw the subtle interaction between Baojun and the clouded leopard just now. It was impossible for them not to recognize each other. If all these prime beasts were one pack, then this white wolf, the leader of hundreds of prime beasts, exactly how strong was it? Qin Sheng quickly provided the answer. Based on beast characteristics, if two prime beasts of the same level appear in a herd, they will definitely slaughter and devour each other. They absolutely cannot coexist peacefully. If two equally matched high-level prime beasts can coexist harmoniously, it proves there is an even higher-level prime beast in this herd that can control them. Actually, as soon as I spotted the two level 6 prime beasts, I had a prediction. There is very likely a level 7 prime beast in this herd. Qin Sheng concluded. Level 7. Isn't that a legendary level? The Chun family members seemed to lose their ability to speak, their minds repeating level 7 over and over. Level 7. This white wolf was very likely a level 7 prime beast. Actually, since the white wolf appeared last time, Chun Tianxiong had made this prediction, and Qin Sheng had noticed this detail too. It was just that this prediction was too shocking, and they couldn't believe it. The highest level for humans was still only level 6. Yet a level 7 existence had already appeared among prime beasts. If humans and prime beasts could only have one survivor, what did humans have to win against prime beasts? Wait, that's not right. Qin Sheng suddenly widened his eyes, finally losing his usual calm expression. If this white wolf is level 7 and can control such a massive herd of high-level beasts, yet it acted so affectionately in Lin Shi's arms before. For a human to subdue a powerful prime beast, they must be stronger than that prime beast. Otherwise, it's fundamentally impossible to gain the prime beast's submission, let alone act so affectionately. Among beasts, the strong rule. Then that senior Lin Shi is also level 7. Qin Sheng guessed this terrifying possibility. And Qin Lujia, having lived for over 100 years, though not as quick-witted as Qin Sheng, also quickly realized this. The two looked at each other. Just what kind of powerful existence was Lin Shi? The others still didn't know what the two were thinking. Hearing Qin Sheng say the handsome white wolf before them was a level 7 prime beast, some were so scared their limbs went numb and they collapsed into the snow. Some turned pale, losing even the courage to fight to the death. An existence stronger than their family head, along with so many high-level prime beasts, they were dead for sure. Truly dead for sure. But unexpectedly, when the others were about to pee their pants in fear, Qinwu not only didn't step back, but took a few steps forward. He probed, "Brother Wolf, do you still recognize me? We just met a few days ago." "Wu, get back. That's a level 7 prime beast." A friend of Chunwu saw him facing a level 7 prime beast and actually throwing himself at it, and hurriedly said, "Chunwu must be crazy. It's over, it's over. We're going to die sooner or later. Today, I, Qin Xiongsa, will have to write my will here. I haven't even given my last words to my wife and kids." Except for Qin Sheng and Qin Lujia. The others all thought Chun Wu was courting death. As for Qin Sheng and Qin Lujia, they were so scared their hearts pounded and their legs shook. Qin Wu, they had only met Lin Shi a few times, so they weren't familiar with this white wolf. The prime beasts in their memories were all brutal and bloodthirsty. Unless tamed for a long time, they wouldn't be close to their masters. Besides their masters, they would still attack others. This was a costly lesson many people in the apocalypse had paid for with blood and tears. Qin Sheng hurriedly wiped his sweat for Qin Wu, but Qin Wu had already reached Mong. Mong looked down at Qin Wu, remembering this was one of the people the master saved a few days ago. Muang raised its paw. At this moment, everyone thought Chen Wu was about to die under Ma Wang's claws. Chen Lujia and Chen Sheng even intended to risk their lives and charge forward. But they had barely taken 2 steps when they saw Muang simply place its paw on the snow and ride on it. To their utter astonishment, "What are you here for?" Chen Lujia almost tripped over his own feet. He felt he must still be dreaming. Otherwise, how could he witness this unbelievable scene? A prime beast that knows how to write. A prime beast that knows how to write. Someone tell him this isn't a dream. Chen Wu was also shocked. Initially, when he approached Muang, he was extremely nervous. The reason he still had courage was because he knew if he didn't do anything today, none of them would survive. He pinned his hopes on Muang remembering him. Chen Wu was hot-tempered, but not stupid. Even though he had anticipated it, he still didn't expect things to unfold like this. Oh my God, a prime beast that knows how to write. Chen Wu stared at Ma Wang's elegant handwriting, muttering blankly. "It writes even better than I do. Someone pinch me, wake me up." In the Chen family group, someone had already fainted. The emotional roller coaster was too fast in such a short time. Even evolved humans couldn't handle it. Chen Sheng was the quickest to calm down. He quickly suppressed his shock. He walked up to Chen Wu and began communicating with Muang. "Hello, Senior Wolf. We are here to find Senior Lin Shi. Last time we promised to give medicine to Senior Lin Shi as a token of gratitude. We brought it today." Chen Sheng took out a large bag of Prime Force pills from his backpack. Usually, the base only gave Prime Force pills to others one by one. Who would give half a sack like this? Initially, some of the people who came along felt it was a waste to give away so many Prime Force pills. Giving away 70% of the base's Prime Force pills to an outsider? Wouldn't their own quotas be drastically cut? Now, they didn't dare think about that anymore. Chen Sheng's hands trembled as he bowed respectfully and offered it up. His attitude was even more humble than when facing the family head. No one thought Chen Sheng was overdoing it. On the contrary, some even thought Chen Sheng's etiquette wasn't enough and he should kneel down to offer it. Muang turned its head to look at Baojun. Baojun hurriedly used its claws to hook the bag and returned to its group. This scene further confirmed the Chun family speculation. Initially, some people heard Chen Wu talk about the strength of Lin Shi, someone they had never met. Along the way, hearing Chen Wu call him senior, they assumed Lin Shi was on the same level as the family head. Most people secretly looked down on him. But now, they just wanted to kneel before the senior Lin Shi they still hadn't seen. The strong are revered. If senior Lin Shi led so many prime beasts to attack the Chen base, how long could their base hold out? As for fighting back, they didn't even bother thinking about it. 2 level 7s, 2 level 6s, plus hundreds of level 5s. If their base could withstand that, they'd eat shit. After receiving the Prime Force pills, Muang rode on the snow again. Anything else? Chen Sheng stood up straight. His voice remained as respectful as before. "Sir, this time the family head sent us to assist Senior Lin Shi with some logistics. For example, hunting prime beasts, collecting and processing beast meat, etc. If the senior is injured, we also have doctors with us who can help treat his wounds." Chen Sheng presented their plan. Muang tilted its head and thought for a moment. Processing prey definitely didn't require these people, but treating wounds was needed. The clouded leopard had left this white forest these past few days and gone deep into the Amazon, encountering quite a few dangerous prime beasts, so it was inevitable that some in the herd got injured. Previously, when Lin Siyuan was still here, Lin Shi would treat their wounds. After Lin Siyuan appeared, Lin Siyuan handled it directly. Now Lin Siyuan wasn't around, and Lin Shi was unconscious, so they could only let the wounds heal on their own. But not all wounds could heal on their own. Large wounds, if not stitched up, would heal very slowly, especially bone injuries, which needed to be set first. Otherwise, even if they healed, it would affect their speed and mobility. Muang didn't want to bring people near Lin Shi, fearing it would affect his safety. It just needed to lead the people to the outer area of the prime beast army, letting them be in charge of treating the injured beasts. Thinking it through, Muang wrote on the snow-covered ground, "Follow me." Then it signaled Baojun to lead the beast herd back. Chen Lujia and the others looked at each other, gritted their teeth, and followed Muang deep into the forest. Reaching the outermost defensive perimeter set up by Muang, Chen Lujia and the others stopped. You guys stay here and take care of treating the injuries. Don't worry, my subordinates won't harm you. But you are not allowed to go too far from here, and you are not allowed to enter our territory. Mong pointed at Chun Sheng and wrote on the snow, clearly explaining the specific tasks to this group. Because Mong felt that among this group of people, only this guy looked a bit smarter. If the others knew Mong thought of them this way, they would definitely look up to the sky and sigh at being looked down upon by a beast for their IQ. Could they be blamed for looking dumbfounded all day? It turned out the scene that almost made them pee their pants just now was only the tip of the iceberg. This is the true army of Senior White Wolf. When the group of people saw the countless prime beasts in this area, except for Chun Sheng and Chun Lujia who managed to stay calm, the others were scared out of their wits. In the future, if the Freedom Base's army attacked, they wouldn't feel afraid anymore. Because from today onwards, they had witnessed this magnificent scene. What was the Freedom Base anyway? They had already seen the strongest prime beast army. They could take on 10 Freedom Bases. Chun Sheng cautiously agreed to Manhwa's request. The Chun family began building snow houses in the snow with bewildered expressions. Initially, they thought Mong told them to come treat Lin Shi's injuries. At that time, they thought, with the strength of a prime beast army like Senior Lin Shi's, would he even get injured? These insignificant people getting to do logistics for a level 7 big shot like Senior Lin Shi, they could brag about this for the rest of their lives. But when they finished setting up their camp and prepared to rest, they realized Ma Wang's intention wasn't for them to do logistics for Lin Shi at all. Chun Sheng and the others had just finished packing their things when a level 5 giant tiger, its sharp fangs exposed, limped over to the Chin family. The Chin family couldn't help but back away. Didn't it say they wouldn't attack us? What does this tiger want? Senior Lin Shi. Senior White Wolf, save us. This cry for help sounded very familiar. But Mong still didn't appear. Chun Sheng noticed the wound on the giant tiger's thigh and immediately had an idea. He shouted softly at the people who were continuously backing away. Come back here. Help me treat Brother Tiger's wound. Brother Tiger? Are you serious? Facts proved Chun Sheng was very serious. And that became their job for the next 20+ days. The Chun family went from initial panic to caution, and finally to complete ease. It only took a little over 20 days. During those 20+ days, they treated wounds for all kinds of prime beasts. Now, whenever a prime beast arrived, the Chun family calmly treated them, even enthusiastically greeting them. Brother Grey Wolf, you're here again. Oh, how did you get hurt like this? Lie down quickly, let me take a look. Brother Monkey, your tail is broken. Remember to shave the fur when you go home to disinfect it. Don't move, the fur will grow back. Master Lion, are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere today? Let me check for you. As for whether the prime beasts understood human language, no kidding, prime beasts even knew how to write. So what was speaking? Right now, they shouldn't underestimate them. What if they changed their taste tomorrow and ate them all? During this time, the Chin family only needed to treat the injuries of the returning hunting teams. They didn't need to do anything else. Initially, everyone was worried about food, but unexpectedly, the day after they finished their food, Mong ordered a prime beast to bring them a fresh prey. Sometimes it was level 4, sometimes level 5. It was even better than the food at the base. At the base, to eat level 5 prime beast meat, you had to make a great contribution or use a massive amount of contribution points to exchange for it. Brother White Wolf is so thoughtful. Brother White Wolf is too generous. After that, whenever they were about to run out of food, a prime beast would bring prey to them. Moreover, the prime beast army was very strong, so the number of injured prime beasts every day wasn't large. The work was light, and they were provided with 3 meals a day. While learning the habits of various prime beasts, the Chin family felt this trip was very worthwhile. This experience was enough for them to brag about for a lifetime. There was only one thing that puzzled them. Besides occasionally seeing Mong, the Chin family didn't even see a shadow of Lin Shi. Mong protected Lin Shi very closely. The Chin family didn't know Lin Shi was unconscious, thinking he was busy with important matters. Time passed peacefully like this for 25 days. Over 30 days after Lin Shi fell unconscious, Lin Shi finally woke up. The meatball was closely monitored to prevent it from causing trouble or escaping. Someone take care of my meals. I haven't eaten anything for over 30 days. I'm starving to death. A plant's life is a life too. Deep in the crater, the fierce fire that once engulfed the sky had gradually died out after burning continuously for a month. However, the bottom of the crater still had charred vines, and embers still smoldered. There wasn't a speck of snow around the crater. The ground was parched from the prolonged burning. Lin Shi lay on a pile of dry branches, his eyes tightly shut. He frowned slightly. No one knew what he had been through. Actually, 10 days ago, his consciousness had already awakened. It was just that his body and mental power were still transforming. The prime force in his body, under the observation of his consciousness, continuously condensed, sublimated, and then spread to every meridian, bone, and muscle. Previously, prime force was only stored in the meridians, but with this advancement, his entire body became a massive prime force reservoir. Even his pores and every strand of hair were filled with prime force. At the same time, prime force from the outside was continuously absorbed into his body. The speed was as if his whole body was a giant pump, sucking up almost all the prime force in the surrounding air. His mental power, which was previously intangible, now trended towards being more condensed. Lin Shi still didn't fully understand this transformation. Just the current changes alone left Lin Shi utterly shocked. Since 10 days ago, Lin Shi discovered his consciousness could leave his body, sensing everything within a radius of hundreds of kilometers. This feeling was completely different from scanning with mental power. Scanning with mental power was taking Lin Shi as the center, spreading mental power outward to detect. The images transmitted to the brain through mental power were like watching TV, not intuitive. But the feeling of his consciousness detaching from his physical body was that his body remained in place, but his consciousness could appear anywhere within that range. It was as if he himself directly appeared where his consciousness went and saw everything. Simply put, it was like the difference between playing a game on an old handheld console and using a modern VR headset. All prime beasts, including Mong, couldn't sense the existence of his consciousness. This feeling was like standing at the pinnacle of all living beings. Not only that, when his consciousness wandered, Lin Shi could manipulate objects within that range. It could be said to be an upgraded version of telekinesis. Previously, telekinesis could only be used at close range. Further away, the control force decreased. But now, wherever his consciousness went, it was as if he was manipulating it with his own hands. Using this ability again felt completely unhindered. Lin Shi even felt that if he woke up right now, he could directly control his body to fly without relying on anything else. On the first day he gained this ability, Lin Shi truly felt like he had become a god. Fortunately, after 10 days of meditation, he had calmed down. He sensed that the level 8 realm was still not the peak. His body and mental power were still not perfect. This feeling was mysterious and hard to describe, but Lin Shi definitely felt it. When he opened his eyes, an incredibly powerful aura radiated from Lin Shi's body to the surroundings. With Lin Shi as the center, within a radius of dozens of kilometers, all prime beasts felt an irresistible aura. That aura made them tremble. Mong was the first to notice Lin Shi waking up. It stuck out its tongue and approached Lin Shi. Lin Shi smiled, reaching out to stroke Ma Wang's big head, his eyes full of joy. It's been hard on you. These past few days, whatever Mong did, he saw it all. Mong rubbed its big head against Lin Shi's hand, its expression as if saying it wasn't hard at all. Serving the master was an honor. Mong used its claws to report what happened while Lin Shi was unconscious, including the Chun base sending people for logistics support. Although Lin Shi already knew about the Chun family's presence, he still wanted to hear Mong tell it. His consciousness had only awakened 10 days ago. He still needed Mong to tell him what happened over 20 days ago. You did very well, Mong. You've truly grown up. Lin Shi looked at Mong with an affirming gaze. This time, narrowly escaping death, even without any preparation, they safely advanced to level 8, thanks to Ma Wang's command. Previously, although Mong was smart, its temperament was still like a child's, making Lin Shi always feel like he was taking care of a kid. Now, Mong was still a bit childish, but had become much more mature and careful. Lin Shi felt a sense of joy, as if he had raised an obedient child. Mong nodded repeatedly, as docile as a child over 3 meters tall. It pushed the prime force pills brought by the Chun family in front of Lin Shi. Seeing Lin Shi wake up, Xiaobai, the clouded leopard, and the other beasts hurriedly ran over. The clouded leopard even deliberately showed off the bandaged wounds on its body, proving its hard work while Lin Shi was unconscious. Lin Shi encouraged them one by one, then took out high-level prime beast meat hunted from his storage space to reward them. After that, Lin Shi went to the meatball, where it was dying in a simple cage. You guys didn't feed it anything? Lin Shi knew the meatball hadn't eaten for 10 days, but still asked. The beasts turned to look at Mong. Malong's eyes looked a bit guilty as it rode on the snow-covered ground. Master, Xiaobai was guarding it. Xiaobai looked at Mong blankly, full of admiration. So admirable. Boss knows how to write. This ball probably won't die, right? But boss said we didn't need to care about it. It doesn't matter if it dies. Innocent Xiaobai didn't know it was taking the blame for the boss. Lin Shi didn't pursue the matter, just reminded them. This thing will be useful later. Be careful not to accidentally kill it. Mong nodded continuously. The meatball, originally a mutated plant that consumed prime force, hadn't eaten anything for a month, making it extremely weak, to the point where even wriggling its tentacles was difficult. Fortunately, plants still had the ability to photosynthesize. But not for long. Just 1 month, and it would have starved to death. Lin Shi took a piece of meat from his storage space and stuffed it into the meatball. The meatball weakly extended its tentacles to receive it. Meatball. Sob sob, finally someone is feeding me. Seeing the meatball eating happily, Lin Shi felt somewhat relieved. He wasn't going to eat the meatball. Lin Shi knew very well this thing still had long-term use value. As long as he waited for the meatball to recover, he could transmit mental power and prime force to it again. The most important thing was mental power. It would help accelerate his gene unlocking speed. Moreover, the meatball could sometimes act as a fast power bank. This thing was quite simple. With a little care, it would become a capable assistant like the clouded leopard or the long-armed ape. Lin Shi narrowed his eyes. After eating the piece of meat, the meatball looked much livelier. Lin Shi squatted down, trying to connect mentally with the meatball the way it used to. This wasn't difficult for him now. Very quickly, Lin Shi felt the mysterious mental connection between the two sides. From now on, follow me. I won't let you go hungry. My name is Lin Shi. I'll just call you Xiaotong. Lin Shi conveyed his thoughts. Xiaotong, which was the meatball, twitched its tentacles and asked telepathically, "Are you still going to cut pieces off me?" Lin Shi said sincerely, "Absolutely not. You provide me with energy, and I will protect you and feed you every day. This is my promise." Xiaotong was very happy, its tentacles wriggling, stuttering telepathically to express its joy. "Thank you. Feed me well." Lin Shi stroked Xiaotong. Mong looked at Baojun, then at Xiaotong, suddenly finding this scene strangely familiar. Lin Shi didn't have disloyal subordinates, only masters who didn't know how to subdue them. Lin Shi used mental power as a bridge, communicating with Xiaotong telepathically. At that moment, he discovered this telepathic ability could also detect lies. A person with subconscious thoughts wouldn't lie. Lin Shi naturally wasn't lying to Xiaotong. Since he had cultivated this power bank, he would protect Xiaotong well and find a way to restore its level. After transmitting mental power and prime force to Lin Shi, Xiaotong's level dropped drastically. It was currently only level 5. This didn't mean Xiaotong needed to unlock its genes again. It was just depleted of energy. As long as it recovered its prime force and mental power, it would return to its peak. When that time comes, enough thinking. Lin Shi withdrew the mental connection. Feeling Lin Shi's sincerity, Xiaotong was extremely grateful, its small tentacles swaying continuously. Mong, Xiaobai, and the other beasts nearby didn't know about the telepathic conversation between the two. Seeing Xiaotong's behavior, they all took a few steps back together. Even shrunk down, it was still very disgusting. Mong spoke. Lin Shi stored Xiaotong into his space. He instructed the beasts again, especially Mong, to take good care of and protect this little creature. Then he walked towards the location of the Chen family group. Chun Wu was bandaging a wound for a gray wolf when he suddenly saw a pair of feet appear in front of him. Without looking up, "Jiansheng, get a piece of roasted meat for this wolf brother as a treat. It likes roasted meat." After speaking, seeing the feet in front of him didn't move, Chun Wu looked up and said angrily, "What are you standing there for?" His loud shout suddenly stopped. You. Chen Wu was so excited he pointed at Lin Shi, unable to speak. Chun Jianxing came out of the snow house, saw Lin Shi, and was so startled he dropped the roasted meat on the ground. He spoke up, "Senior Lin Shi." As soon as the words fell, the entire camp exploded. "What? Senior Lin Shi? Senior Lin Shi is back. I want to go out and see." "Brother Tiger, wait a moment. Let me go see Senior Lin Shi's heroic bearing. Then I'll come back and treat your wound." Currently, there weren't just the original 10 people in the camp. After Chun Tianxiong found out, he sent over 10 more people. Knowing this place wasn't dangerous and had a group of prime beasts protecting it, Chen Quan, that little brat, also tagged along. However, many people in the camp had never seen Lin Shi. Hearing the exclamations and commotion, everyone ran out to see. "Senior Lin Shi is so young? Is Senior Lin Shi really level 7? I'm not remembering wrong, am I?" The latecomers had all heard about the illustrious battle achievements of the Prime Beast Army commanded by Lin Shi. Actually, among them, few had ever seen Lin Shi in action. Only Qin Sheng, Qin Wu, and Qin Quan had seen Lin Shi fight a few times. Being stared at by so many people, Lin Shi didn't feel awkward. He said politely, "You've all worked hard these past few days." "It's nothing." Chen Lujia was warming himself by the fire in the snow house. Hearing Lin Shi was back, he hurriedly ran out. "We only did some insignificant minor tasks. Senior and your Prime Beast Army are the ones contributing to the survival of humanity." Feeling the immense, unfathomable prime force from Lin Shi, Chen Lujia didn't dare be disrespectful. "So Senior is level 7. I previously thought you were level 6. I was blind." "Senior, I thought you were dead." That was Chen Quan, the chubby guy. Lin Shi glanced at him. Chen Quan immediately stood up straight. Lin Shi said, "No need for formalities. I came here to inform you that this area has been cleared of prime beasts. Next, I will lead my Prime Beast Army deeper. We'll follow you." Chen Wu replied immediately. Initially, he came to do logistics purely out of respect for absolute strength. Plus, Lin Shi had saved his life. Since coming here, the work was light, there was no need to fight, and they had endless high-level prime beast meat to eat. He felt his prime force had increased much faster recently than at the base. If you chased him away now, he wouldn't want to leave. Chen Lujia nodded. "Senior, our mission is to provide logistics and support for you. You just focus on killing, leave the rest to us. If we're short on people, I'll go back to the base and bring more. Then pack your things. We leave in 2 hours." Lin Shi didn't stay long after giving his instructions, returning to the large crater to continue adapting to his level 8 power. Chen Wu looked at Lin Shi's retreating back and scratched his head. "I really want to ask the senior how many years it took him to evolve to level 7. Could it be he unlocked level 6 genes in his 20s? Chen Lujia said angrily, "How dare you ask about the affairs of such a peerless powerhouse? Hurry up and pack your things. If Lin Shi thinks we're deliberately prying into his secrets, we won't even know how we died." 2 hours passed quickly. The Prime Beast Army marched in a massive formation deeper into the forest. Leaving that white forest, outside was a vast expanse of white snow, along with towering ancient trees left over from before the apocalypse, not completely covered by snow. At the same time, due to the existence of those small vines previously, the sense of danger was relatively strong, so the prime beasts that could hide had all hidden away. Not long after leaving the white forest, an intense battle with a level 6 prime beast herd took place. The Chun family witnessed the strength of Lin Shi's prime beast army with their own eyes for the first time. 200 prime beasts, led by a level 6 prime beast, were suppressed by Lin Shi's prime beast army in just a few minutes. Mong controlled ice blades, charged forward, and bit off the opposing prime beast's head in a few snaps. It was truly too ferocious. The Chun family thought, were these the same wolves and tigers that were usually so obedient and gentle in front of them? After the shock, everyone was in awe. So Brother White Wolf, who writes, is actually this strong. Truly worthy of being level 7. Brother Tiger is so fierce. I'm a bit scared to look Brother Tiger in the eye. The bow tie on Brother Monkey's tail fell off. The other prime beasts displaying their level 6 abilities made the Chun family dizzy. Many couldn't help but compare the Chun base's strength with this battle. They realized that if family head Chun Tianxiong personally led them into battle against the opposing beast herd, they would definitely have to pay a huge price to win. Moreover, it wouldn't be this fast. In other words, if they stood against Lin Shi's prime beast army, they wouldn't last long either. Even if they didn't want to admit it, it was the truth. Lin Shi once claimed to represent the Xia country government in negotiating cooperation, which shocked many people. Because of the government's hidden strength, many secretly decided that no matter who they offended, they must never offend Lin Shi and the government. Lin Shi didn't care what others thought. Even though he stood watching without joining the fight, his consciousness still spread along with his mental power to farther regions. Suddenly, Lin Shi stirred. In his mind, the mutated giant crocodile that had previously warned Xiaobai appeared. Unexpectedly, that giant crocodile had swum along the river out of the White Forest. But currently, the giant crocodile's situation wasn't very good. A few thousand kilometers down the river, the giant crocodile was fighting a massive black python. The black python was over 100 meters long. Its body as thick as a water vat, tightly wrapping around the giant crocodile's massive body. In comparison, the giant crocodile's body looked much smaller. The two giant beasts struggled, the thick ice around them shattering. The giant crocodile thrashed violently, its powerful tail continuously whipping the river surface. The sound of breaking ice echoed through the forest, sending ice shards and water flying everywhere. The giant crocodile was tightly coiled by the black python, having no chance to bite back. Just as the giant crocodile fell into a passive state, the ice armor on its body glowed. The rough armor suddenly became sharp. The black python couldn't avoid those sharp spikes and was injured, but it didn't let go of the giant crocodile, even coiling tighter. This scene fell into Lin Shi's eyes. His mind activated, launching a mental attack at the black python. The black python, originally cold and sharp, suddenly fell into agony. Its body coiled around the giant crocodile, subconsciously loosened. The giant crocodile took the opportunity to break free from the restraints, distancing itself from the black python. Lin Shi didn't expect to witness a great battle between two level 7 prime beasts right after leaving the White Forest. His intervention just now could be considered repaying the giant crocodile for warning Xiaobai. As for later, whether the giant crocodile fell into a disadvantage or not, he didn't intend to interfere. The giant crocodile had warned Xiaobai, its own kind. It certainly had no good feelings towards Lin Shi. Humans and prime beasts were inherently opposed. Shouting needed the flesh and blood of high-level prime beasts to restore its level. Lin Shi decided to go take a look. If the giant crocodile won, he would spare it. If the giant crocodile lost, he could kill the black python to replenish Xiao Tung's flesh and blood. It could also be considered avenging the giant crocodile. Speed up clearing the battlefield. Lin Shi shifted his attention back to his prime beast army. The battle was almost over. He quickly gave the order. The beast herd immediately sped up. After that, everyone saw Lin Shi fly into the air, not stepping on anything, but actually flying. Lin Shi glanced at the people behind him, thought for a moment, and tried using telekinesis to control the Qin family. The Qin family only felt their bodies become light as a massive force lifted them up. The group of Qin family members was terrified, struggling with all their might. Don't resist. Lin Shi's voice rang in everyone's ears. Everyone immediately fell dead silent. Then they realized in astonishment that they were flying up. This feeling was truly novel. Who doesn't long to fly? Taking an airplane before didn't feel like anything special, but flying up on their own like this, even Chun Lujia's face flushed red with excitement. For Lin Shi, controlling over 20 people to fly was no difficult task. It was no different from controlling weapons. From level 8 onwards, Lin Shi could control much heavier objects. Let alone 20-something people, even a few hundred more, Lin Shi felt he could handle it. On the ground, Mong wiped the blood from its mouth onto the snow and chased after Lin Shi. The other prime beasts also hurriedly followed. Along the way, Mong and the prime beast army encountered a few more waves. This time, Lin Shi personally took action. Lin Shi stood in midair, motionless like a straight pine tree. Sharp weapons appeared out of thin air, falling from the sky, accurately hitting the vital spots of every prime beast blocking the way. The speed was so fast it made everyone dizzy. In just the blink of an eye, the battle was over. It once again left the Qin family in awe. Then they continued. Moving forward, The flying experience quickly made the Chun family extremely excited, but they didn't know where Lin Shi was taking them. This anticipation filled their hearts with eagerness. They wanted to ask, but didn't dare. It wasn't until the Chun family landed that they knew what Lin Shi brought them here for. It turned out it was to watch two level 7 giant beasts slaughter each other. Before the Chun family could finish rejoicing, they suddenly shuddered. It was a mutated black caiman and a mutated cobra. Oh my god, there are such high-level prime beasts in the Amazon. Lin Shi didn't fly slowly, but level 7 prime beasts fought very fast too. Every second was a life-and-death struggle. When everyone landed, the battle between the giant crocodile and the black python was nearing its end. The battlefield, originally in the river, had moved to the shore. The giant crocodile's head was bitten by the black python, seemingly losing its ability to resist. More than half of its body was swallowed. That was what the Chin family saw. Only Lin Shi knew what had happened behind the scenes. After the giant crocodile and the black python distanced themselves, the two beasts clashed again underwater. As a result, the giant crocodile was still at a disadvantage, getting bitten on the tail by the black python. This black python had probably evolved a neurotoxin. After that, the giant crocodile's reactions became increasingly sluggish, quickly losing its agile dodging ability. It was bitten on the brain by the black python, then dragged ashore. Once ashore, the giant crocodile became even more sluggish, eventually stopping moving altogether. It was completely swallowed by the black python. But the black python wasn't entirely intact either. Many scales on its body had fallen off, exposing flesh and blood. It even lost a venomous fang. One could see how fierce the battle was. After the black python swallowed the giant crocodile, its already massive body grew another size larger. The black scales looked incredibly terrifying under the sunlight, especially the black python's pitch-black eyes, which were staring intently at the group of people over 1,000 meters away. The overwhelming power of a level 7 prime beast terrified the Chun family to the point of being speechless. Even from quite a distance, the pressure still made people tremble in fear. If Lin Shi and Mong weren't here, the Chun family would have definitely run away. Only Lin Shi knew the whole story. At this moment, a level 7 mutated carnivorous spider was hiding under a snow-covered hillside a few kilometers away. Its compound eyes were intently watching the black python and the group of people. It seemed to have been watching there for a long time, waiting for the right moment. Originally, the 3 level 7 prime beasts each had their own territory. The giant crocodile's territory was in the water region previously occupied by Xiaotong. Later, for some unknown reason, perhaps sensing danger, it left that water region and entered the black python's territory. Fighting over territory and evolution, the two beasts engaged in a life-and-death battle. The loud noise of the 2 level 7 prime beasts fighting had attracted the attention of their neighbor. This was the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind, as Lin Shi guessed. Reaching level 7, both intelligence and strength were very formidable. In areas with a high density and relatively high level of prime beasts like this, they would usually keep to their own territories. Unless there was a chance to kill the beast king of another territory, or in cases of force majeure, they wouldn't invade another beast king's territory. Senior, are you planning to capture that black python? Chen Lu asked, trembling as he approached Lin Shi. I heard that a python's aggression drops when it's feeding. This one just swallowed a giant crocodile, so it definitely can't move. This is the perfect time for you to strike, Senior. To think the Amazon rainforest had so many high-tier origin beasts. Chen Lu broke out in a cold sweat. If the origin beasts in this area had slaughtered each other and produced an 8th-tier beast king back then, their base would have been leveled in minutes. Thank goodness a noble benefactor was here to help them eliminate the threat. Lin Shi nodded without a word, preparing to strike. But his target wasn't the giant black python. Suddenly, everyone noticed the sky darkening. Something was blocking out the sun. Looking up, they saw the entire sky covered in thousands of origin weapons materializing out of thin air. Most were swords, with a few sabers and other weapons mixed in, their blades gleaming in the air. This dense, overwhelming sight was just like the legendary technique, myriad swords returning to the origin, straight out of a TV show. With Lin Shi's current power, he didn't need to rely on small origin weapons for agility. He could control a massive arsenal. Small origin weapons had limited destructive power, fine for clearing out hordes of low-tier origin beasts, but dealing with high-tier ones required something much sharper. His arsenal of origin weapons was incredibly vast. Don't ask where they came from. They were generously sponsored by the Qi and Wang families. Among the Qin family crowd, someone gasped in shock. That sword, it looks familiar. Whoa, isn't that the great sword belonging to the Wang family's patriarch? Keep your voice down. I see a long sword that looks exactly like the one the Qi family's patriarch uses. Evolutionaries had excellent memories. Even though the Qin family hadn't interacted with the other hidden great families for years, they used to hold gatherings decades ago. The patriarchs, in particular, would spar and exchange pointers. They might not recognize the weapons of ordinary members, but they were very familiar with the origin weapons of the patriarchs. The signature weapons of 2 patriarchs from the 4 hidden great families were actually in Lin Shi's hands. The Qin family suddenly felt a wave of anxiety, but they didn't have much time to worry. Everyone stared intently at the origin weapons, watching wide-eyed, as over 1,000 blades carved a silvery white arc through the sky. At breakneck speed, they shot toward the snowy mountainside a few kilometers away. The Qin family was dumbfounded. Weren't they supposed to be killing the black python? Was Senior Lin Shi just showing off his martial arts to them? Honestly, they were ready to drop to their knees. They had never seen myriad swords returning to the origin, but they were witnessing myriad weapons returning to the origin with their own eyes. Should they inform their patriarch to proactively offer his personal weapon to Senior Lin Shi? Was this some kind of hobby of his? Some of the Chun family members started wildly speculating. But very quickly, they realized they were wrong. Dead wrong. Not long after, the origin weapons returned along the exact same path. And as they flew back, hundreds of blades were dragging a massive spider with a body spanning 4 meters. It was a Goliath bird-eater. A bird-eater that huge. Someone immediately recognized the spider. It was the largest spider species from before the apocalypse, the Goliath bird-eater. Even before the apocalypse, its leg span was the size of a wash basin. But no one had ever seen one this massive. It was undoubtedly a high-tier mutated origin beast. As for whether it was 6th tier or 7th tier, even the Qin family, with their superior insight and experience, couldn't tell. They never expected that while they were focused on the python nearby, another high-tier venomous spider had been lurking in the shadows, eyeing them as prey. Many Qin family members were so terrified their hearts pounded against their chests. In the tense atmosphere, young Chun Quan took a few steps forward, curiously pointing at the ferocious spider. Senior Lin Shi, what tier is this one? Lin Shi replied nonchalantly, 7th tier. Chun Quan's eyes bulged. He clutched his chest, looking like a frail maiden having a heart attack. He suddenly found it hard to breathe, feeling as if countless dangerous eyes were glaring at them from the dark. Chun Quan made a firm decision. In this lifetime, unless Senior Lin Shi was with him, he would never set foot in this place again. The rest of the Qin family shared the exact same thought. 7th tier. Another 7th tier. Were 7th tier beasts just a dime a dozen now? To these beasts, 4th and 5th tier evolutionaries like them were nothing but insignificant ants. And that was the harsh reality. Anywhere else, there probably wouldn't be this many high-tier origin beasts. But where were they? This was a place that was already fraught with danger long before the apocalypse. The largest rainforest in the world. The place with the most diverse ecosystem on the entire blue planet. It was no surprise that such high-tier origin beasts would spawn here. If Lin Shi hadn't shown up, and these origin beasts were given a little more time to devour each other, it wouldn't be strange at all for an 8th-tier origin beast to emerge from this jungle. Sensing that something was wrong, the black python quietly retreated toward the riverbank. The spot where it had just fed wasn't far from the water. The python wasn't stupid. It knew this was an advantageous position. If it encountered danger on land, it could immediately escape into the water. Seeing its neighbor get skewered by swords, the black python's desire to taste some human flesh instantly vanished. Now, it only wanted to panic and flee into the river. Senior, that python is trying to escape, someone warned. Lin Shi, who was recalling his origin weapons, said calmly, it won't get away. Having just swallowed a giant crocodile, how could the black python possibly escape that fast? The moment it surfaced, countless streams of cold energy instantly shot toward the water. This battle unfolded right before the Qin family's eyes. Everyone watched in shock as the giant black python desperately tried to dodge. But under the dense rain of origin weapons, it couldn't avoid having its flesh pierced by countless blades, thrashing wildly in its death throes in the river. The black python scales offered incredibly strong defense. Many low-tier origin weapons couldn't even scratch it. However, the python had already been injured in its fight with the giant crocodile. Many of its scales had fallen off, making things much easier for Lin Shi. The black python desperately wanted to sink to the riverbed to hide, but thousands of origin weapons rained down from the sky, plunging straight into the depths right after it. Very quickly, the giant black python was dragged ashore. This time, it returned to the bank as nothing more than a massive corpse. Its body crashed to the ground, shaking the earth. At the same time, the hearts of the Qin family members pounded wildly. Two seventh-tier origin beasts that seemed incredibly dangerous had died so easily. The Qin family members were dumbfounded. Fast, so fast. The two battles ended in a flash, but a lot of origin energy was consumed. As he retracted his origin energy, Lin Shi thought to himself that low-tier origin weapons really weren't durable. He secretly decided that in a short while, he would return to Sha City and find the old man Li Xinke to forge about 100 high-tier origin weapons. Might as well get it done early and enjoy it early. As for whether old man Li would be overwhelmed, Lin Shi thought for a moment and decided he would gift old Li a bottle of divine tree essence to nourish his body. Meanwhile, in another distant part of the blue planet, Li Xinke was at the Scientific Research Institute when he suddenly sneezed twice in a row. His hands trembled, spilling too much origin weapon powder, and the equipment in front of him started flashing red lights. The others hurriedly operated the machines. "Professor, your health is important. You haven't slept in 3 days. Why don't you go back and rest? Let us handle this experiment," a student managing Li Xinke's tasks quickly said. Li Xinke waved his hand. "It's fine. This old man's body is tough. Every time that brat Lin Shi needs something urgently, I have to stay up for days on end. Times are different now. I can hold out for another 10 days or half a month without a problem. Just now was an accident. Let's continue." The scene shifted back to the Amazon rainforest, right in front of the Qin family. Lin Shi reached into his pocket and pulled out a small vine from his spatial dimension. Seeing the object in Lin Shi's hand clearly, the Qin family members all drew a sharp breath. "What is that?" Qin Quan, the quick-mouthed little girl, blurted out. "As senior, what is that thing? Children shouldn't ask what they shouldn't ask." Chen Jinxing quietly stepped behind Qin Quan, whispered in her ear, and pulled her away from Lin Shi's side. Lin Shi placed the small vine onto the massive python corpse. As if smelling the stench of blood, the small vine quickly extended its tentacles, piercing through the tough scales. To everyone's horror, they watched the giant black python's corpse gradually shrivel up. The small vine, initially the size of a tennis ball, was now rapidly growing. Sixth Master Chun was so terrified his beard trembled. The other Qin family members didn't fare much better. Everyone took a collective step back. Even the self-proclaimed tough demon king took a step back, feeling like it had found a kindred spirit. Not only the black python's corpse, but even the giant crocodile's essence began to dry up. The giant crocodile's essence was absorbed by the vine. The vine grew to the size of a soccer ball and then stopped, growing no larger. It merely slowly extended its tentacles. Not long after, a small red vine sprouted from its main body, followed by a white one. Fueled by the massive energy absorption, the vines rapidly grew and strengthened. Gradually, the original small vine, which had looked like some sort of fungus, was covered by dozens of tendrils. Over a month ago, when Lin Shi first saw the small vine at the bottom of the deep pit, even though it still didn't look pretty, at least it no longer made people feel nauseous. The tendrils on the small vine continued to grow. The scene once again fell into an eerie silence. The Qin family members originally thought that after more than a month of constant terror, they would never experience such fear again in their lives. But unexpectedly, there was no most terrifying, only more terrifying. Lin Shi suddenly spoke up. "No need to grow any longer." "Uh-huh." Sixth Master Qin blankly responded, seemingly not understanding what Lin Shi meant. However, Sixth Master Qin quickly realized Lin Shi wasn't talking to him, but to that spine-chilling thing. The small vine obediently stopped growing. After sucking the giant python and crocodile dry, the small vine used its flexible red tendrils to slowly crawl toward Lin Shi. Full and plump, it looked like a short-legged octopus the size of a water bucket. "Go suck that one dry too." Lin Shi pointed at the spider corpse. The small vine happily crawled toward the spider corpse. Right before everyone's eyes, it sucked the spider dry as well. With a slight shift of Lin Shi's will, the three massive beast corpses vanished without a trace. The materials from 7th-tier origin beasts were essential for forging high-tier origin weapons. Next up for him, Lin Shi no longer avoided using his spatial abilities in front of others. So what if someone guessed it? No one could steal it anyway. He was that confident now. Sure enough, the Chen family members shrank back, but no one dared to ask a single question. "You guys just set up camp here," Lin Shi reminded them. "There are still quite a few low-tier origin beasts nearby that need clearing out." Based on his past experience, Lin Shi divided his origin beast army into action groups, while he flew over the river surface, preparing to clear out the aquatic origin beasts. This basin had quite a few aquatic origin beasts, mostly amphibious types. Lin Shi controlled his origin weapons, killing them one by one and storing their corpses in his spatial dimension. Most of the flesh and blood was directly fed to the small vine. Aside from the Demon King, Lin Shi was no longer in a rush to upgrade the levels of the other origin beasts. Letting them level up naturally was fine. The origin beasts in this area caused a ruckus for a while before gradually returning to silence. A month later, Lin Shi sent the Chen family members back to the Chen family base. He recalled his origin beast army into his spatial dimension, then swept the area with his consciousness. Confirming that this region had been completely cleared, he headed toward the Chen family base. His consciousness sensed a high-tier presence deep within the Amazon basin. Its level was not low, higher than his. It was the kind of feeling where only beings of the same tier could sense each other's existence. Yeah, the time for the Demon King to advance to the 8th tier would also be here. To do a good job, one must first sharpen their tools. He wanted to pick up that kid Lin Siyuan first, then make a trip back to Sha City and wait for his origin weapons to be forged before making his next move. The entire Amazon rainforest was simply too massive, over 7 million square kilometers. Lin Shi estimated that next time he came here, it would take him several more months to clear it out. On his next return, he would definitely wipe out all the origin beasts in South America. Chen Family Base, District H, Sector 10. Lin Siyuan sat on a stool in front of his room, his eyes vacant, staring at the end of the street, lost in thought. His once fair, chubby little face had visibly thinned out. He was still wearing the same clothes he had on when Lin Shi left him. It was just that the colors had faded to a pale wash. The reason was that every morning, Lin Siyuan would use clean snow to scrub his clothes and body, keeping himself spotlessly clean. In the apocalypse, such an action was completely superfluous. The natural oils and dirt secreted on the skin could protect survivors from frostbite in the freezing cold, and even provided a certain degree of warmth. Moreover, washing clothes frequently made them wear out faster. In all of District D, aside from Lin Siyuan, everyone else was trying every possible way to stay warm and full. Only Lin Siyuan wasted time every day bathing. Although no one dared to mock him to his face, behind his back, there was no telling how much cursing went on. Only Lin Siyuan knew the reason. He was waiting for Lin Shi to come back and pick him up. Uncle really likes cleanliness. He remembered the look of disgust in Lin Shi's eyes when they first met, forcing him to wash up thoroughly. At this moment, a soft voice called out from behind Lin Siyuan. "Siyuan, time to eat." She looked much more haggard than she did 2 months ago. Her once sharp, cunning face now bore a look of fear, especially when her eyes fell on Lin Siyuan's back, as if she were looking at a demon. On the table in the room sat 2 bowls of unappetizing food. This was the specialty of the Chen family base, vegetarian meat. These were all exchanged by Lin Siyuan using contribution points from doing missions outside the city every few days. The food she had brought from Lin Shi's place had run out in less than a month. For over a month after that, she had only survived thanks to the vegetarian meat Lin Siyuan brought back. On their second day in District D, the old gang of thugs in the district had come demanding protection fees. That day, Lin Siyuan had taught Jiaku a lesson, But that didn't make the greedy thugs give up on the fat piece of meat right in front of them. Even though Lin Siyuan was a third-tier evolver, in the eyes of others, he was just a child. A child, even if lucky enough to level up, was nothing to be afraid of. In fact, because Lin Siyuan looked so fair and soft, some death-courting fools even teased him, asking if he sold his body for his tier. That guy ended up dying the most gruesome death that day. That day, the front of Lin Siyuan's room was covered in blood. The child Lin Siyuan was unharmed, but the thugs left behind several corpses, including a third-tier evolver. From then on, no one dared to approach Lin Siyuan's room, and no one dared to look down on him anymore. Lin Siyuan remained seated, staring at the end of the street. If Uncle came to pick him up, he would definitely come from this direction. The logistics team has been back for 3 days now. Why hasn't Uncle returned yet? It wasn't until Ji smelled the food and was about to call him again that Lin Siyuan finally spoke. You eat. I'm not eating. Ji happily went back into the room, abandoning all pretense of manners as she wolfed down the food, eating Lin Siyuan's portion as well. Starting tomorrow, I won't go on missions to exchange for food anymore. Lin Siyuan's voice was filled with pessimism, weariness, and despair. Ji, who was satisfyingly wiping her mouth, froze upon hearing this. She immediately revealed her true colors. You're my son. On what grounds are you not going to exchange for food? I'm not your son. Lin Siyuan didn't turn around, disappointedly withdrawing his gaze from the end of the street. Ji didn't bother pretending anymore either. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. You're waiting for that lord to come back, aren't you? Stop dreaming. You only followed him for a few days, and now he's been gone for over 2 months. He's long forgotten you. I heard that lord is a 7th-tier powerhouse. People like us are just ants to him. Who pays attention to ants? He's such a powerhouse. We're worlds apart. You should have realized this when you left District B with me. Hearing this, Lin Siyuan's eyes lost their focus. That's right. He should have realized it long ago. Uncle's promise to come back for him was a lie. How much of what adults say can be trusted? Abandoned by his biological parents since childhood, then abandoned by his adoptive parents. Who would truly care about him? What use were his abilities to a 7th-tier powerhouse? Perhaps he had long been exposed as not being a good, obedient child, despised and thrown away. His very survival was a mistake. The light in Lin Siyuan's eyes seemed to extinguish. He curled up on the stool, looking weak, pitiful, and helpless. Seeing this, Ji frowned. She knew what Lin Siyuan was waiting for. Although she scoffed at his wishful thinking and looked down on it, she still wanted to extinguish those unrealistic thoughts. Because Ji knew that if she wanted to keep living, she could only rely on Lin Siyuan. She softened her voice. Siyuan, Mom is the person who has lived with you the longest in this world, and the only one who still cares about you right now. Put away those thoughts you shouldn't have. Let's just survive together, okay? The only one. Who cares about me? Lin Siyuan repeated mechanically. Ji nodded repeatedly, feigning tenderness. That's right, Mom loves you. Even though you're not my biological son, I've raised you for so many years. How could I not have feelings for you? Now it's just the two of us relying on each other. After saying that, she even wiped away non-existent tears. Ji was about to continue faking her emotions to deceive Lin Siyuan when a commotion erupted at the end of the street. Ji looked up. A group of dark figures emerged from the alley, heading this way. The leader was Zik, the guy who had come to rob them and was scared off by Lin Siyuan last month. Ji had heard that Zik could no longer operate in District D and had left. Why was he back? The other households in the alley heard the noise and hurriedly slammed their doors shut. Bang, bang, bang. Only Lin Siyuan's door remained open. Seeing Zik approaching, Ji panicked and shoved Lin Siyuan. Siyuan, hurry inside and shut the door. They're back. Lin Siyuan stood still as the group approached. You little brat, I'm a 4th tier now. Weren't you so tough? Zik kicked Lin Siyuan hard, sending both him and the stool crashing to the ground. No one knew why Zik had reappeared here after 2 whole months. He used to be a 3rd-tier evolver in a notorious gang in District D. Over 2 months ago, their gang was wiped out because they messed with someone they shouldn't have. Their strongest, most arrogant boss was reportedly killed by a 6th-tier powerhouse who snapped his neck. After that, they finally managed to find a new boss, only for him to be killed by a little brat. That day, hearing that Ji had returned from District B with a lot of good stuff and a kid, he suggested robbing them. He never expected that kid to be a third-tier evolver. What terrified him was that the kid was even more ruthless than the vagabonds in this gray area. In just a few moves, he killed the gang's new boss, who was also a third-tier evolver. Several gang members died, and Zik fled in terror. Thus, the gang disbanded. Since then, he had kept his head down in the district, filled with resentment and regret, eventually fleeing to the outer city. For the past 2 months, he had endured enough disdain and mockery, but luck had finally smiled upon him. While on a mission, he stumbled upon 2 fourth-tier origin beasts killing each other. One was dying, and the other was on its last breath. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He dragged the 2 origin beasts to a secret location, ate their meat, and absorbed the origin energy in their bodies. Finally, yesterday, he broke through to the 4th tier. He returned to District D in glory, changed into new clothes, slicked back his hair, and threw his weight around, flaunting his 4th-tier strength in front of those who had mocked him, gathering the old members of his gang once again. As a 4th-tier evolver, Zik could live in District C. But remembering the humiliation Lin Siyuan had subjected him to 2 months ago, he decided to come back and kill that little brat first, teach those who mocked him a lesson, and then head to District C to enjoy life. Ji was terrified when she saw them. Hearing Zik say he was now a 4th-tier evolver, she nearly fainted. Siyuan, hurry, protect Mom. Lin Siyuan scrambled up, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. Before he could stand steady, Zik kicked him again, sending him flying into the room. The bowls on the table crashed to the floor, shattering with a loud noise. Seeing that Lin Siyuan had no ability to fight back, Ji hastily shirked all responsibility. Lord Zik, last time, it was this brat who offended you. It has nothing to do with me. Now I'm handing him over to you. Do with him as you please. Lin Siyuan turned to look at Ji. Seeing Lin Siyuan looking at her, Ji glared back angrily. What are you looking at, you little brat? If I didn't need you to scrounge up some food, I wouldn't have wanted to see your dead face a long time ago. You're not my son. I just treated you like a useful dog. Lin Siyuan stood up and walked toward Ji. Ji backed away continuously. What are you doing? Lord Zik, hurry, kill this brat. This guy, irk. Before Ji could finish her sentence, Lin Siyuan had grabbed her by the throat. Lin Siyuan's small arm raised high, creating a disproportionate scene that looked incredibly brutal when contrasted with Ji. Do you think I know why I left Uncle? It's all because of you. Lin Siyuan's eyes no longer held the coldness of his age, but were filled with hatred. If she hadn't stubbornly insisted on following him, he wouldn't have been separated from Lin Shi, nor would he have been abandoned. He shouldn't have gone back to Ji just to find out his true origins. He didn't want to find his biological family. He just wanted to stay by Uncle's side. It was all because of this damn woman. Lin Siyuan ignored Ji's frantic struggles, his hands tightening their grip. Even though he had reached the 4th tier, Zik couldn't help but take a step back when he saw the look on Lin Siyuan's face. Last time, it was this exact look that killed the previous boss and several others. The subordinates behind him quickly supported Zik, saying, Boss, you're a 4th tier now. This brat is only 3rd tier, and he dares to act arrogant in front of you? Kill him. Right. Zik swallowed hard, regaining his composure. Let go of that woman, you little brat. Did you hear me? Lin Siyuan continued to ignore him, as if immersed in his own world, his eyes fixed only on the struggling Ji. Zik stepped forward and delivered a kick. Lin Siyuan fell, and Ji fell with him, coughing violently. Ji quickly scrambled up, ran behind Zik, and hugged his arm tightly, rubbing her chest against it. Lord Zik, thank you for saving me. I'm yours now. Hearing the sweet Lord, and feeling the softness against his arm, Zik couldn't help but feel elated. Although he absolutely despised Ji, he was very satisfied with her current attitude. Once he returned to District C, he would get to enjoy the pleasures of women. Wasn't this exactly what being called a lord meant? Lin Siyuan scrambled up, still glaring at Ji with bloodshot eyes. Ji pointed at Lin Siyuan. Lord Zik, kill this little beast. Kill him. Zik had come here for revenge anyway, so of course he was going to kill Lin Siyuan. Seeing Lin Siyuan's fierce look, anger surged in Zik's heart. He swung a backhand slap, knocking Lin Siyuan to the ground. A clear handprint immediately appeared on Lin Siyuan's small face, followed by another kick to the chest from Zik. Sprawled on the ground, Zik sneered viciously. Little brat, weren't you so tough? Show me how tough you are. Lin Siyuan clenched his fists, a vicious glint flashing in his eyes. He waited for Zik to get closer. With such a massive gap in strength, he would only have a chance to counterattack then. At some point, he had tightly gripped the origin weapon shard he had asked for when he left Lin Shi, just waiting for Zik to underestimate him and get close enough to deliver a fatal blow. But at that moment, Lin Siyuan caught sight of a round object on the ground. It was the piece of candy that had fallen out of his pocket when he fell, the one Lin Shi had given him before, which he still hadn't eaten. Lin Siyuan's eyes darkened. Counterattack? How could he survive? In this filthy, freezing, nauseating world, was he supposed to survive like a dog? Lin Siyuan glanced at Zik's ferocious face and Ji's crazed, venomous expression. He looked up at the filthy ceiling, the fierce look in his eyes gradually softening. He slowly closed his eyes. He relaxed his hand, letting go of the origin weapon shard. Seeing Lin Siyuan so resigned, Zik smiled sinisterly. He stepped on Lin Siyuan's clean clothes with his dirty shoes, then hawked and spat a thick wad of phlegm onto him. I heard this brat really likes being clean, huh? Come here, let me piss on him to my heart's content. The others revealed despicable expressions, taking turns unzipping their pants, preparing to urinate on Lin Siyuan. Ji stood on the sidelines, rubbing her neck, laughing gleefully. But she very quickly witnessed the most horrifying scene of her life. The men who were about to urinate suddenly lost control. They raised their hands, grabbed their own heads, and then twisted their heads off. Ji watched as they twisted their own heads off. Not only that, but their faces still bore expressions of sheer terror. This scene was straight out of a horror movie. By the time Lin Siyuan noticed something was wrong, there were already several corpses around him, including Zik, the guy who had just spat on him. Looking up, he saw Ji staring at him as if she had seen a ghost. As if realizing something, Lin Siyuan scrambled up and ran out of the room. Ji was so startled by Lin Siyuan's sudden movement that she slumped to the ground, backing away in terror. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. But Lin Siyuan paid her no mind, looking instead toward the street he had been watching for 2 months. A familiar, upright figure was taking step after step toward him. Even though dusk had passed and the dark night had fallen, the appearance of that person was the only light that dispelled the darkness. Lin Siyuan's eyes grew red, tears streaming down his swollen face, which he then wiped away himself. For some reason, even though their time together had been short, just seeing Lin Shi made Lin Siyuan feel like he was seeing family. This feeling was much stronger than when he was with Ji. As Lin Shi approached, he saw the boy he hadn't seen in over 2 months with a swollen face, covered in dirt, looking as if he had suffered the ultimate grievance. Lin Shi spoke in a less than friendly tone. Have you waited enough? Enough. Then are you coming with me, or, before Lin Shi could finish asking, Lin Siyuan answered, I'm going with Uncle. His eyes seemed to say that if he answered a second too late, he would be abandoned. Then let's go. Lin Shi coldly took the lead, heading toward District B. Lin Siyuan hurriedly chased after him. Wait. Ji's voice rang out from behind. Siyuan is my son. You can't take him away. If you want to take him, you have to take me too. Ji was about to say that when she suddenly thought that once Lin Siyuan left, it would be hard for her to survive. She wanted to return to District B, to the small apartment, and live a high-class life. Lin Siyuan lowered his head, clenching his fists, a vicious aura flashing in his eyes. He didn't want anyone to become a reason for Lin Shi to despise him. Before Ji could finish her sentence, she was sent flying by an invisible force, crashing heavily to the ground. Lin Shi disdained laying a hand on this kind of trash. He stopped, looking at Lin Siyuan's anxious expression, and sighed. Actually, he had noticed Lin Siyuan was in trouble early on. Even before entering the base, his consciousness had already reached here. He didn't intervene, just wanting to see how Lin Siyuan would handle it himself. He didn't expect this kid to actually seek death. Lin Shi crouched down and pried open Lin Siyuan's palm. In the boy's palm was the origin weapon shard he had given him for self-defense. Because Lin Siyuan had gripped it too tightly, his palm was torn, dripping with blood. Lin Shi frowned. He had always been a cold person, finding it hard to sympathize with others, especially a child. He didn't know what Lin Siyuan had gone through to develop such an extreme, two-faced personality. Don't hide things from me in the future. You should know, as long as you don't threaten me and are useful to me, I will keep you around. Lin Shi took the origin weapon shard away. Lin Siyuan felt his palm empty, a sense of disappointment washing over him. Seeing Lin Siyuan staring blankly at the wound without stopping the bleeding himself, Lin Shi said, slightly annoyed, "Aren't you going to stop the bleeding?" Lin Siyuan looked up. "You said I couldn't use my abilities outside." Lin Shi raised an eyebrow. He didn't expect Lin Siyuan to still remember his instructions at a time like this. "Then let's go." Lin Siyuan followed Lin Shi back to the small villa. As soon as Lin Shi returned, the entire Chen family base was in an uproar, but he didn't stay long. After bringing Lin Siyuan back to wash his face and change into clean clothes, he left again. This left Chun Tianxiong, the head of the Chen family, who had prepared many things, feeling disappointed. It was like a male college student carefully preparing a gift for his goddess for days, only to never get the chance to give it to her. Chun Tianxiong thought, "I heard Senior Lin Shi likes the personal weapons of the hidden family heads. I even put the weapon in a gift box and tied a bow carefully. But Senior Lin Shi just left. Doesn't he like robbing people blind? I was going to play along a bit more." The reason Lin Shi left so quickly was that upon leaving the Amazon rainforest, he received news from Lin Tianrui. Someone had come to the government base, specifically looking for him. Lin Shi didn't know who was looking for him. The distance was far, and news traveled slowly. He didn't overthink it and headed straight back to Xia City. Flying from North America back to Xia City in Xia Country only took him about half a day. Lin Shi never expected the person looking for him to be beyond his imagination. Lin Shi brought Lin Siyuan and flew straight into the inner city of the base, landing below Lin Tianrui's dormitory. The surrounding guards were startled to see Lin Shi and Lin Siyuan suddenly appear, but quickly calmed down. "Commander Lin, you've returned," Lin Tianrui's personal guard shouted, stopping the soldiers who were preparing to rush forward. "The leader is in his office. You can go straight in." After Lin Shi saved the entire base last time, even those who had been dissatisfied or disliked him didn't dare harbor any other thoughts. In fact, Lin Shi's status was even higher than Lin Tianrui's. They were absolutely loyal to Lin Tianrui, but toward Lin Shi, they held absolute awe. Lin Shi nodded, leading Lin Siyuan to Lin Tianrui's office. The personal guards watched them go, their gazes lingering longer on Lin Siyuan. A look of confusion flashed in their eyes. A newly promoted personal guard approached and asked, "Who is that person? Why is his status so high?" During the previous battle with the Wang family, Lin Tianrui's personal guards had suffered heavy casualties, so many were new recruits. Furthermore, Lin Shi hadn't appeared in the base for over 2 years. Last time, he only came to kill Wang Tianyuan and then left. Therefore, most people in the base only knew Lin Shi by name, but had never seen his face. "That is the stabilizing pillar of our base, Lin Shi. Remember his face from now on. Even if the leader barges in, you are not allowed to touch him. Pass the word down. Tell those guys to be careful these next few days. If they see an unfamiliar face, don't be careless." The other man's eyes widened, and he nodded repeatedly. Weren't they basically telling them to be more loyal to Lin Shi than to Lin Tianrui? But offending Lin Tianrui would only result in punishment, but offending Lin Shi had only one outcome. Moreover, it wouldn't just be one person dying. It could implicate the entire base. In this world, there was no faction left that could withstand Lin Shi's wrath. Even the hidden families had 2 wiped out, and another came running to suck up to him. With such a powerhouse, how could these small fries dare to offend him? Because that big shot is always a lone wolf. The person next to him is. If you shouldn't know, don't ask around. Lin Tianrui, who had fortunately officially reached the Emperor tier, 5th tier evolver level after the previous battle, had already noticed Lin Shi's arrival. It wasn't that he could probe Lin Shi, but rather he noticed Lin Siyuan beside him. Lin Tianrui personally came out of his office to welcome Lin Shi, raising both arms to give him a big hug. "Brother Lin, long time no see." Seeing Lin Shi again, Lin Tianrui was overjoyed. Last time the base was attacked by the Wang family. When Lin Shi appeared, Lin Tianrui was severely injured and unconscious. By the time Lin Tianrui woke up, Lin Shi had already left Xia Country. He hadn't had the chance to thank him, and now he had finally looked forward to Lin Shi's return. But Lin Tianrui quickly changed his smile to a look of misery. Lin Shi looked at Lin Tianrui, whose arms were blocking the entire hallway. He reached out, picked Lin Siyuan up, and shoved him into Lin Tianrui's arms. Lin Siyuan. Lin Tianrui, last time that brat Fong Chao said you brought a kid with you. I didn't even believe it. I didn't expect you to actually bring a kid. Is this your illegitimate son? He looks a bit like you. Lin Tianrui looked at Lin Siyuan, half joking. Lin Siyuan. Lin Tianrui took a closer look at Lin Siyuan, thinking that Lin Shi was only in his early 20s, so having a 10-year-old son didn't make sense, and dismissed the speculation. It was no wonder Lin Tianrui thought that way. He considered himself a pretty good judge of character, and his assessment of Lin Shi's personality wasn't wrong. Lin Shi was someone who didn't like being tied down. Previously, Lin Tianrui had even wondered if Lin Shi would find a wife. Facts proved that Lin Shi had no desire for women. Even normal emotional attachments were pitifully scarce. Yet he had brought along this kid, Lin Siyuan. It was truly like the sun rising in the west. Lin Shi bypassed Lin Tianrui, walked straight into the office, sat down, and poured himself a cup of tea from the thermos. Lin Tianrui took a sip and said, "Tell me, who's looking for me?" He put Lin Siyuan down, led him into the office, and said, "As soon as I saw you arrive, I sent someone to call him." Wait a moment. Lin Tianrui and Lin Shi started chatting casually. For instance, he asked about Lin Shi's progress in hunting origin beasts. Lin Shi glanced at the origin beast count on the treasure bowl. "I've killed about a fifth." "A fifth of Asia? That speed is truly worthy of our brother Lin. We're heading south now. Looks like we need to speed up. We can't fall too far behind brother Lin. Let me calculate. At this rate, in 50 years, we'll definitely wipe out all the origin beasts on the entire blue planet." "I'm in a fifth of the blue planet." Cough, cough, cough. "Is that so?" Lin Tianrui choked on his tea, astonished, but also felt that Lin Shi's miraculous speed wasn't impossible. "Right? Have you reached the 7th tier?" Ever since Lin Shi easily killed the Wang family head at the base, Lin Tianrui had guessed he was at the 7th tier. He thought to himself, "I knew it." Lin Shi's answer nearly made his jaw drop. 8th tier. Lin Shi didn't hide it from Lin Tianrui. Even at the 7th tier, Lin Tianrui couldn't beat him anyway. 7th tier. Lin Tianrui only thought Lin Shi had reached the 7th tier. He raised his teacup, his voice trembling. "You kid, you advance faster than a rocket." "Uncle said 8th tier," Lin Siyuan corrected. Lin Tianrui spat out a mouthful of tea. Lin Shi had already dodged to the side. If he had been sitting directly opposite, he definitely would have been sprayed. 8th tier. Lin Shi looked at Lin Tianrui with an annoyed expression. That look seemed to say, "You're the base leader. Can't you be a little more mature?" Lin Tianrui knew he had lost his composure and quickly called someone to clean up. At that moment, a personal guard reported, "Leader, the person who wants to see you is downstairs." Lin Shi went downstairs. As soon as he saw the person, he immediately focused his attention on him. The newcomer was tall and lean, with distinct facial features. His originally handsome face was marred by a gruesome scar running from his forehead down to his chin, stripping away some of the refinement and adding a rugged toughness. Wearing a black leather jacket and jeans, he looked quite nonchalant in this weather, but it also showed his strength. At this temperature, anyone without 5th-tier strength couldn't wear such thin clothes. Lin Shi realized this person wasn't just 5th tier, but a 6th-tier evolver. The most important thing was, Lin Shi noticed this person's facial features were quite similar to his own. Lin Tianrui smiled and said, "Brother Lin, the person looking for you is here. I heard he's a friend of your father's. Probably a relative or an elder. You two talk. I'll clean this place up and find you later." Lin Shi nodded, pulling Lin Siyuan downstairs. As Lin Shi walked down the stairs and appeared on the ground floor, Lin Rongshuan focused his gaze on Lin Shi's face, more precisely, on his brow bone. When he saw the scar on Lin Shi's brow bone, Lin Rongshuan's originally calm eyes suddenly rippled violently, like a large rock thrown into a tranquil lake. He blurted out, "Sure." Lin Shi looked up at the unfamiliar man, stopping about 2 meters away, and asked doubtfully, "Who are you?" Lin Rongshuan rubbed his hands together, looking awkward, trying to hide his emotion, and said, "Hello, I am Lin Rongshuan, a friend of your father, Lin Mingzhen. Lin Rongxuan. Lin Shi murmured this name in his heart. He had already guessed this person's identity, because he had heard this voice over 2 years ago, in the dream regarding his birth. If he wasn't mistaken, the man standing before him was the one who had handed him over to Lin Mingzhen right after he was born. Lin Rongxuan didn't reveal his identity, and Lin Shi didn't say anything either, bluntly questioning him. "I've never heard my father mention you." Lin Rongxuan stiffened slightly, a flash of panic appearing, but he quickly hid it. "Your father and I have been friends for many years. It's adult matters. You were young, so you wouldn't understand." Huh. Lin Shi watched Lin Rongxuan speak evasively, not exposing him, but said, "Let's go to my place to talk." With that, he pulled Lin Siyuan toward the soaring dragon courtyard. Lin Rongxuan followed behind, noticing Lin Siyuan holding Lin Shi's hand, and asked, "Who is this little friend?" Lin Shi didn't answer, coldly saying, "Don't ask what you shouldn't ask." Lin Rongxuan's eyes widened in anger, but he seemed to suddenly think of something. A hint of anxiety flashed in his eyes, and he suppressed his anger. The three of them arrived at the soaring dragon courtyard. The courtyard was as clean as ever. Lin Rongxuan looked around and smiled. "The scenery here isn't bad. Base leader Lin treats you really well." Lin Shi didn't reply, just walked into the house. "Sit." Lin Shi sat down on the sofa, gesturing to Lin Rongxuan. Lin Rongxuan sat opposite Lin Shi. Both remained silent, the atmosphere somewhat awkward. Seeing Lin Siyuan there, Lin Rongxuan didn't know if he could trust the boy, so he said, "Let the kid go play." Lin Siyuan looked at Lin Rongxuan, then at Lin Shi. He was about to stand up and leave, but Lin Shi held him back. Lin Shi calmly looked at Lin Rongxuan. "If you have something to say, just say it. This is my house." Lin Rongxuan was speechless. "You're the guest. What right do you have to chase my family away?" Lin Shi looked at the man who shared his bloodline, his feelings complex. Even though he had mentally prepared himself for having a stranger as a father, Lin Shi still had many doubts in his heart. If Lin Rongxuan was so powerful, why didn't he look for him earlier? In his previous life, until he was murdered, Lin Rongxuan never appeared. Did this father come for him, or for the treasure bowl? Lin Rongxuan had already been surprised several times by Lin Shi today. Taking a few deep breaths, he silently chanted, "Biological, biological, biological." Then, remembering his original plan to quickly build rapport, Lin Rongxuan started, "I haven't seen your father in many years. Is he doing well?" "He's dead." Lin Rongxuan had anticipated this answer, because when he investigated Lin Shi, he hadn't heard any news about Lin Shi's father. Yeah. Lin Shi understood what Lin Rongxuan wanted to ask. "When I was 16, he was murdered." What? Lin Rongxuan had thought that at the very least, his subordinate could have raised Lin Shi to adulthood, or that they had gone through hard times. He never expected him to die so early. Instantly, his anger at Lin Shi's cold treatment vanished. A deep heartache and guilt flashed in his eyes. His enemies are dead, Lin Shi interrupted again. Lin Rongxuan cautiously asked, "So you lived with your mother after that?" "My father died. My mother remarried. She married the very person who murdered my father." Lin Shi said these things very calmly, as if he had completely forgotten about it. Hearing this, Lin Rongxuan looked at Lin Shi, unable to hide his guilt and heartache. How much suffering must he have gone through, suffering to the point of numbness, to be able to recount this so calmly? Lin Rongxuan hesitated, not daring to ask further. He didn't know what this child had been through all these years. No wonder he had such a cold personality. Lin Siyuan also looked at Lin Shi with a different gaze for the first time. The atmosphere among the three suddenly fell silent. Lin Rongxuan couldn't stand the silence. He rubbed his knees and said, "Don't you have anything you want to ask me? Who are you?" Lin Shi's eyes suddenly sharpened, staring intently at Lin Rongxuan. Met with Lin Shi's direct gaze. Lin Rongxuan instantly froze. He had never seen such a sharp gaze on anyone. That gaze seemed to want to see right through him. The words he had prepared in his head were choked back. Lin Rongxuan never expected that meeting his son again after more than 20 years would be under these circumstances. He originally planned to use the identity of his father's friend to get acquainted, then slowly reveal his identity as his biological father. After all, for any child raised by someone else for 10 or 20 years, having someone suddenly appear and say they are the biological father, and that the previous person was just entrusted to look after them, anyone would find that hard to accept. But Lin Rongxuan didn't know that for others, suddenly gaining a father might be very hard to accept, but Lin Shi had been reborn. Having experienced the memories in his dream, he already knew Lin Mingjun wasn't his biological father. Lin Shi had accepted this truth and was mentally prepared to accept another father. Therefore, Lin Rongxuan's concealment made him seem untrustworthy in Lin Shi's eyes, someone who couldn't be trusted for the time being. Lin Rongxuan thought for a moment and finally decided to speak according to his original plan. Right now, I am your father's friend. You might not have heard my name, but your father and I share a secret. Once you hear it, you'll know my relationship with your father. Lin Shi said indifferently, speak. He was willing to patiently see what this biological father's true intentions were. Lin Rongxuan felt this situation was a bit weird. It didn't feel like he was here to acknowledge his son, but rather to acknowledge a father. He blinked, suppressing the unease in his heart, looked at Lin Shi, and said, "Did your father mention you to me?" Lin Rongxuan coughed twice, thinking his subordinate must have changed everything. Therefore, he couldn't start from his subordinate's external characteristics. He could only start with Lin Shi. So he said, "Your birthday is October 23rd, right?" "Wrong," Lin Shi corrected. "From childhood until now, my birthday has always been December 24th. Lin Shi wasn't lying. His birthday had always been December 24th. Lin Mingjun must have changed Lin Shi's birth date. Lin Shi had also guessed this from the sudden change in age on the treasure bowl's interface. Even though he knew Lin Rongxuan was telling the truth, he still didn't want to play along with this man. Lin Rongxuan was stunned, then looked embarrassed. He obviously also realized that his subordinate had even changed the birth date to hide Lin Shi's identity. The atmosphere became awkward again. Lin Rongxuan blinked rapidly. He couldn't exactly say that the scar on Lin Shi's brow bone was left by him, could he? The scar on your brow bone. Lin Shi fell out of bed when he was little. Lin Rongxuan fell silent again. He looked up at the ceiling and decided to use his ultimate move. He used his hands to simulate a size and said, "Did your father leave you a broken bowl?" "It's here." The crucial question is here. Lin Shi's expression remained unchanged. His eyes didn't even waver. He just frowned at Lin Rongxuan and calmly said, "What broken bowl?" Lin Rongxuan said with a slightly agitated voice, "It's an old bowl with a hole about this big. It's dirty, looks a bit like an antique. You've never seen it." "Never seen it." Lin Shi still didn't change his expression. "Your father didn't give that bowl to you." Lin Rongxuan jumped up. This time, he truly couldn't sit still anymore. Lin Rongxuan suddenly felt this was entirely possible. After all, he had just heard Lin Shi say his adoptive father died when he was 16. And Lin Rongxuan remembered he had instructed his subordinate to wait until Lin Shi came of age to tell him his identity and the matter of the treasure bowl. So, was the treasure bowl lost by his subordinate due to his sudden death before he could pass it on? Lin Rongxuan took a deep breath. Lin Shi, seemingly unaware of what Lin Rongxuan was thinking, said indifferently, "I don't know what you're talking about. Who are you? Why are you impersonating my father's friend?" Lin Shi would absolutely never admit the existence of the treasure bowl. After all, the man in front of him probably understood the existence of the treasure bowl even better than he did. Did he have a way to separate the treasure bowl from his body? The treasure bowl was Lin Shi's biggest secret and reliance, and it was tightly linked to his origin beast army. Even if it was his biological father, a biological father he hadn't met in over 20 years, Lin Shi didn't want to trust him unconditionally, unless this man proved he was worthy of his wholehearted trust. But up until now, not a single word Lin Rongxuan had said to Lin Shi was sincere. Lin Shi lowered his eyes to hide the emotion flashing in them. Lin Rongxuan realized he seemed too agitated and sat back down, explaining, "I once entrusted a traditional bowl to your father. It must be because your father died early that he didn't have time to give it to you." Seeing the person in front of him still refusing to admit his identity, Lin Shi's voice grew even colder. "You gave something to my father. Why must he give it to me?" Being asked so bluntly, Lin Rongxuan's mouth fell open, unsure if he should just tell the truth. Lin Shi didn't rush him. The atmosphere fell into silence again. Lin Siyuan gently tugged at Lin Shi's sleeve and said softly, "Uncle, I'm a little tired. Can I go upstairs to rest?" Lin Shi was slightly taken aback, then gently nodded. Go on up. Thank you, uncle. Lin Siyuan smiled faintly, leaving space for the two of them, and stood up to go upstairs. After Lin Siyuan left, Lin Rongxuan looked more relaxed, preparing to take advantage of the absence of outsiders to explain everything clearly to Lin Shi. Right at that moment, a knock came from the door. Open up. You're back. Qi Yun's voice rang out from outside. Lin Shi glanced at Lin Rongxuan, saw his surprised expression, and stood up to open the courtyard door. Outside was indeed Qi Yun, looking quite relaxed. Qi Yun's eyes lit up when he saw Lin Shi. You really are back. I was wondering why the base guards were so serious lately. Qi Yun poked his head into the courtyard. Who's this old guy? Lin Rongxuan's face darkened. I'm very young, okay? Thinking this in his heart, Lin Rongxuan stood up straight and said, I am a friend of Lin Shi's father. Qi Yun was born long after Lin Rongxuan had disappeared. The two had never met, so they didn't recognize each other. Hearing Qi Yun call Lin Shi brother, Lin Rongxuan thought Qi Yun was the adopted son of Lin Shi's adoptive mother, so he didn't think much of it. Qi Yun looked Lin Rongxuan up and down and sneered. Now any random cat or dog comes claiming to be a relative. Qi Yun was arguably the person who understood Lin Shi's situation the best. He knew Lin Mingjin and Lu Siyue were Lin Shi's adoptive parents. Lin Mingjin had passed away 6 or 7 years ago, and that woman who left, along with Lin Shi's biological father who had abandoned him many years ago, might not even be alive. How could he possibly have any friends? Lin Rongxuan was furious. He didn't dare lose his temper with his son, but some unknown brat came out of nowhere and scolded him? He immediately glared, and the aura of a 6th-tier evolver suddenly erupted, aimed straight at Qi Yun. Which family are you from? A kid with no manners. Lin Rongxuan had just arrived at the base yesterday, and Qi Yun had never heard of this character. Faced with the sudden appearance of a 6th-tier evolver from within the base, Qi Yun was secretly on guard, but on the surface, he feigned indifference, turning to ask Lin Shi, who is this old guy? Lin Shi smiled faintly. I don't know either. Lin Rongxuan thought to himself, this hurts. What do you want with me? Come in. Lin Shi said to Qi Yun. Qi Yun had only come to chat with Lin Shi. Originally, seeing someone else here, he was going to leave, but seeing Lin Rongxuan standing behind Lin Shi glaring and trying to intimidate him, Qi Yun felt he absolutely had to stay today. Not for any other reason, just because of his stubborn, reckless nature. And so, after Lin Siyuan left, the living room was once again left with 3 people. How long are you staying this time? Just a few months. Taking a break to sort things out. That's great. Qi Yun chatted with Lin Shi casually, even naturally going into the kitchen to find lemons or something similar to make 2 glasses of lemon tea for himself and Lin Shi. That's right, there was no portion for Lin Rongxuan. Lin Rongxuan felt his fists itching to clench today.